A whole new event and a new discipline in the midst of it all. Welcome to Goodwood SpeedWeek, presented by Mastercard, and welcome to the first stage of the SpeedWeek Super Special. Rallying comes to Goodwood for the purposes of today and tomorrow. We have not just rallying, we have the Drift Carner, we have a shootout over the full race circuit, and we have some fantastic racing to look forward to as well over the next few days, going right the way to the end of Sunday. A great mix of cars, great mix of drivers, and with the best bits of the members meeting, the best bits of the revival and the Festival of Speed all thrown into one. And although it is behind closed doors, that gives a slight positive. It means that without spectators here, a little bit more of Goodwood's real estate can be used. And so for this rally stage, the first of which you're going to see get underway in a few moments' time, we can use the perimeter roads, we can use the tunnel, we can do all sorts of things that we wouldn't normally be able to do here when there are thousands of fans lining the banks. There's a great mix of cars coming up, some of which will run in the demo class, some of which will be fully timed. We will get times for the demo cars, but it's not a competitive event for them. But there's everything from a Lancia Stratos to one of the great iconic Escort Mark IIs, the Audi Quattro, the sort of car that started the revolution of Group B rallying, through to the Lancia Delta S4 Integrale, an example of Ford's RS 200 that, although it won the British Rally Championship, never quite made the same impact in the World Series. The MG Metro 6R4 represented with a couple of examples as well, one from Martin Overington, one from Stuart Larvae, plus the Peugeot 205 T16. At the other end of the Peugeot spectrum is the 1900cc GTI 205. There is the Group 4 HF Integrale Lancia Delta, Subarus aplenty, and also the Toyota RA40 and the GT4 as well. Plus, right up to date, the current Polo GTI R5, Fiesta R5s and the Proton R5s as well. So a great mix of cars, and you'll notice nestling in there one or two intriguing names, including Stig Lonquist, 1984 World Rally Champion. He's been a race winner at Goodwood Members Meeting. He's been a regular at the Festival of Speed on the rally stage. What's he going to be able to do on our super special this evening? Tonight, there are 4 stages out of the 7 that make up the SpeedWeek Super Special. Stages 1 and 2 will be exactly the same. Stages 3 and 4 will be the same as each other, but a fresh challenge for the crews. One is called the North, one is called the South stage. You'll see why when we get through the course of the evening. This is part of the challenge. They've got to get quickly and safely and neatly through the tunnel and then accelerate out the other side. So at the moment, the cars will be in what is the conventional paddock. They will do a 90 right. They'll go down through the tunnel, pop out the other side, and then turn left. Short burst of acceleration. Do the looping left hairpin, accelerate back the way they have just come, and then they'll wriggle their way around the perimeter before blasting onto the race track itself, heading into Madgwick, where there will be a hairpin, and they'll blast back towards the flying finish. The stage itself is going to be 1.2 miles, the first stage of the event, and the first cars that you're going to see won't be competing cars. They will be the new Toyota Yaris, the cars, the GR Yaris, pre-production, but these 2 new cars, one of which is going to be driven by Elfyn Evans, one by Jari-Matti Latvala, will have an opportunity to go and look at the course first before we get the timed competition cars out on track. And one red, one white, they will be the first cars to have a look at the stage. It'll give everybody a chance to have a look at exactly what the course layout is. It has been put together by Rick Smith and members of the Southern Car Club. Rick very involved in the rally stage at the Festival of Speed, so some good brains behind this. A great entry, and there you see the 2 Yarises ready to go. So as soon as the marshals are happy, the cars will be released, and then we'll get the activity for the evening underway. 2 stages, stages 1 and 2 the same, then stages 3 and 4 the same, and it's the cumulative times, of course, added together that will give us our event winner. 3 more stages tomorrow, interspersed with the on-track activity at the end of the day. So tomorrow is going to be another very busy day here at Goodwood, so too Saturday and Sunday, but the rally aspect taking place tonight and tomorrow. So soon as the officials are happy, then the cars can be released. We've had a busy day on track anyway, with the manufacturer laps taking place, and a number of cars in action, and as soon as the circuit is made clear of them, ready for the rally stage, we'll be good to go. Now, this is how tomorrow looks. It starts at 9:15 with the qualifying sessions, the practice sessions for the races, the SF Edge Trophy, the Goodwood Trophy, and then the Jerry Marshall Trophy, where you have the up to 1982 touring cars with 2 drivers to cycle through. Then we have the qualifying session for part 1 of the St Mary's Trophy, whereas the Jerry Marshall Trophy, for example, will have a pit stop race. The St Mary's Trophy, although it's 2 drivers, you race in 1 part specified when you enter the event. So we'll have drivers for part 1, separate drivers for part 2, and then we'll have our first look at the great variety of cars taking part in the shootout presented by Mastercard. They get 1 lap each. First race of the weekend will be at 12:40, and then at 10 minutes past 1 we go back to rallying, because we will have the first of tomorrow's stages within the SpeedWeek Super Special. Then there will be more demonstrations on track, the Fisk Bentley, Porsche's Motorsport Pyramid, for example, and then we'll have the second race, the Goodwood Trophy, followed by the Michelin Supercar Run, and further demonstrations at the end of the day. Look at Porsche's Le Mans heritage, for example, and celebrating 70 years of Formula One. So the last couple of course vehicles making their way out of the circuit, and then we'll be good to go. There you have the ex-Ari Vatanen Ford Escort Mark II, the car owned by the Latvala family, and it is going to be Jason Latvala who will be behind the wheel of it. The Audi Quattro, the car that, as I said earlier, revolutionised the look of rallying into the 1980s. Didn't win instantly, but it didn't take Audi long to work out exactly what you needed to do to make the car competitive, and of course then everybody had to follow suit. Got the Group 4 Quattro for Andy Trainer, there's the A1 for Adam Marsden, and there, the first chance to have a look not only at the stage, but as Jari-Matti Latvala accelerates from the other side of the tunnel, the Toyota Yaris as well, the GR Gazoo Racing Yaris. You're looking here at 257 plus brake horsepower, 3-cylinder turbocharged 1600cc engine. It's 4-wheel drive. It's not a standard Yaris. This isn't a Yaris that's been breathed upon to make it into a competition car. This is built on a separate production run in Japan, and it takes 2 separate floor plans to make them together to get the 4-wheel drive. It's a different floor plan, it's a different look to the car. It's got a lower roofline, for example. So really it goes back to your homologation special days. This is the road-going version of what Tommy Mäkinen wanted the rally cars to be, and the Toyota GR Yaris then seen for the first time, and our opportunity to have a look at the stage for the first time. Jari-Matti Latvala isn't necessarily going for a time, but what he is doing is going for it, come what may. This is a chance to have a look at the perimeter road as he blasts around the outside of Madrid, and then the car threads its way onto the circuit, accelerates then now up towards the wrong way, towards the pit lane if you like, through the chicane that's put in onto the circuit, and then accelerates out of Madrid round towards the approach to the pit lane. There's another chicane though that's going to be put in there to slow the cars down, to give the drivers another challenge. Thread through that and then accelerate up towards the flying finish. Now Elfyn Evans, who has been in great form in the World Rally Championship this year, indeed a former winner of Wales Rally GB in his Ford days, is also behind the wheel of one of these Toyota Gazoo Racing Yarises, and perhaps being a little more cautious than Jari-Matti as he comes then down that drop. Now though on the tarmac, really shows what the car is capable of as the grip bites. Goes into that 90 left and gets it back onto the race circuit itself, up through the gears, accelerates away. And so Elfyn Evans, who was part of a great weekend for Toyota Gazoo Racing, he won in Rally Turkey. Same weekend Tom England won in the British Touring Car Championship, and Toyota won at Le Mans. It was a perfect weekend for Toyota Gazoo Racing. Elfyn Evans part of that, second generation rally driver of course, and makes his way then up towards the flying finish. And that therefore means that now the teams can get ready, the officials will be ready, and our SpeedWeek Super Special is just moments from getting underway. And that first car running out of the demo class will be the Mark II Escort, then the car in the hands of Jason Latvala, Susanna Latvala alongside, with the road book calling the instructions as to which way the road will go. And is it going to be throwing caution to the wind, or will the first look at the stage
be a little bit more circumspect. Let's find out then as the Shell Oils livery Escort slots into place. The Mark II Ford Escort, the sort of car that won the 1979 and 1981 World Rally Championships. In 79 it was Bjorn Valdegaard that won it, the first World Championship. 1981 was Ari Vatanen's year. And there's a car that, with the livery, would have been driven by Ari Vatanen, Neil Wilson on the maps long before pace notes. And so the Escort is good to go then. Clock counts down. The Southern Car Club officials ready, and at the allotted second the car will be allowed away. So 10 seconds shown by the marshal. Now you get the 5, and when we get to 0 away we'll go the Escort. Now the green light blinks on. Don't forget cold tyres. It's a stage on which nobody has competed before, but underneath the tunnel then goes Jason Leppley. The Escort making that lovely noise as it barks out the other side. Tweak of the handbrake, the back comes out. Escort Mark II synonymous with just that approach to any discipline, any stage, whether it was tarmac or gravel. So now round the back of the buildings on the outside of the chicane here, trying to get your bearings, comes Jason Leppley. Now he works his way on this tarmac section underneath the trees. It's a dry stage. It's been dry all day. It's been chilly, but it's been bright and sunny for the most part. So it's a dry stage that the drivers are coping with. Round the donut and now onto the gravel. So this is the section that takes them parallel to the circuit in the right direction, round the back of it, and then onto that loose that drops you down towards the tarmac, going the wrong way around Madgwick. So the Escort, you can see the time ticking down, goes through the chicane, avoiding the bales, the left-hand drive Mark II Escort, back onto the power goes Jason Leppley. And he's making his way then now up towards the drop down onto the tarmac. So round the outside of Madgwick, this is the climb, but you go up, you've got to come down the other side of it. So the drop down onto the tarmac beckons. Mark II Escort then treating the gravel with perhaps a little bit more caution than the tarmac. You can understand why, with all the stones clattering against the underside of the car. The back of the car wags out as Jason Leppley then gets back onto the power. The clock ticking on down. Remember, this stage is 1.2 miles in the length, but it's a stage only really here can you get proper speed out of the car. Through Madgwick, accelerating then now up towards the chicane that he's put in on that pit straight. Flick through the right, then left, back onto the power, through the flying finish, and the time is a 1:52.2 for the Lepleys. So Jason Leppley sets the target time, 1:52.2 in the Ford Escort. Now, Andy Trainer is the next one to go in the Audi Quattro. The ex-Hannu Mikkola, Arne Hertz car, the Group 4 Quattro. And it was with this car that Hannu had probably Audi's initial success, in fairness, in Group 4 rallying, the early days of the four-wheel drive revolution, with wins on the RAC rally and elsewhere, not only in the world but also in the British Championship. With the cars running at 30-second intervals, it's a slower time, 2 minutes 6.2 for Andy Trainer and Tanya Short. Now, the next car that we get to should be the John Saunders Tony Hart Lancia Delta S4 here, the Lancia Delta Integrale that really did rip up the form book of Group B rallying when this car came along at the end of 1985 with its turbocharger and supercharger, and Henry Toivonen blitzed everybody on the RAC rally that year. Austin Rover, that had debuted a 6R4, for example, suddenly had to think, oh, maybe we're going to come up short here, and this instantly became the benchmark. Audi and Peugeot had done the bulk of the winning up to that point in Group B, but when this Lancia came along, it was Lancia's first four-wheel drive effort on the back of the two-wheel drive 037. It soon became the car to beat, and it pushed the boundaries going into that rather horrific 1986 season. A very cautious descent here, though, from John Saunders as he drops down once more towards the tarmac. The car only actually won the Delta S4 5 World Championship events, but as I say, it certainly set the tone, and it perhaps became the most outlandish car with the almost dragster-like back end. A great car on tarmac and on gravel. So that heads up towards the end of the stage. This, in the ex-Kenwood Metro 6R4, is number 8 Ovington. The Metro 6R4 made that great noise. Williams, of course, had an input into building these cars, into designing these cars. And although the demise of Group B rallying greatly affected what Austin Rover could do, then they were at least able to sell an awful lot of them into the clubman's hands. This, though, is perhaps the iconic look of a Metro 6R4, because in the computer vision colours, this was how Tony Pond finished third in the 1985 RAC rally. He and Malcolm Wilson became the works drivers for 86, and the more powerful cars that ran in the World Rally Championship, John Davenport overseeing the team, that familiar bark to the engine and headlights on, up towards the chicane. Then now comes Stuart Larvae in this very original 6R4. Away next goes the Martin Spurrell ex-Colin McRae Subaru. And in terms of times, relatively few still coming up onto our timing screen, but the 6R4 of Martin Overington, 150.7 seconds, his most recent time. But now, of course, you get into the more modern machinery here, so let's see what can be done by Martin Spurrell in the Subaru Legacy. So this, of course, a car that came after that Group B era. Group A had become the regulation of choice. Around the donut, we're getting it wrong, Martin Spurrell, so has to sort himself out. Gets back into the right direction now, but time lost there as he and Terry Dolphin went round the donut a little too energetically. So now round the back of the buildings, staying on the tarmac for the moment, but heading towards the gravel. Subaru Legacy, the car with which Subaru really had its first successes, initially in the African rallies where durability was key, but then of course along came the Impreza and a whole new chapter in rallying and in Subaru's fortunes was written on the back of the sport. Up the climb goes Martin Spurrell. Of course, as the cars at 30-second intervals thread through, we're not going to be that far away now from the actual pucker timed runs here. So there, the Subaru accelerating towards the chicane. Colin McRae and Derek Ringer would have been the people sitting in the car with the cigarette livery. Next car that we swing to is the Toyota of Ben Mellors. Ben, another second generation competitor. It is Alex Lee sitting alongside him, and these two will be very competitive, and I suspect will set the target time now within the actual time competition. Ahead of them should be, haven't seen it yet, but it should be on the stage, the Lancia Stratos of Max Gerardo. It's an older car, admittedly, but the Stratos, always a fabulous looking car, and that's the first one to run within the timed group. But you can see the energy being put in here by Ben Mellors as he accelerates up towards the climb around the outside of Madgwick. So is this going to go fastest of all? So far in the sectors, the answer is yes. Max Gerardo goes through, does his time. And a 1:23.8 then, the time to beat. Ben Mellors looks like he's going to be able to do it then as he comes up towards the line. Let's see, the clock carries on ticking. There's the flying finish, and it is quicker than the Stratos. The clock didn't stop, I don't think, as he went through the beam there. We'll have to get confirmation of the times at the very end of this as you go to David Wright's Ford Focus, and next Carlos Sainz car in the, by then, Martini colours, which had gravitated away from Lancias onto Fords for the final part of the era. But this car, again an original car, heads down the dip. And Mellors' time I'm slightly doubtful about, because that had been up 1:45.8 even before the car got there, but we shall see. Up towards the line then now comes David Wright. So the focus, the early focus, into the chicane, flick right, flick left, up to the flying finish. And a 140.3 for the Ford Focus. A very good effort indeed. Best time of the evening. Now, if anything can beat it, this could be the car. Kevin Ferber with the Peugeot 208. The car out of the European Championship that Alessandro Vettiger drove, the son of the late Attilio Vettiger. And this effectively an evolution of the car that Craig Breen took to 4 European Rally Championship wins. Kevin Ferber, very, very experienced driver, and so the R5 208 T16 should, I would have thought, be able to go quickest. George Leckley, though, in his Mitsubishi has now gone to the top on a 138.2. He's quickest on this stage. So can Kevin Ferber retaliate? Let's see. Looks like you've got counting down. He's going to miss it, I think. So, yeah, it's a 42.3 for Kevin Ferber. So at the moment, George Leckley is the fastest. Here is Ollie Mellors with the Proton. Jaipur Pale Ale backed car. And the Proton R5, again, a very rapid car indeed. Ollie Mellors flicks it through the chicane, a lot of commitment being put in. There is more opposition. This is Ocean Price with the Volkswagen Polo GTI R5, so it's going to be possibly between these two. Mellors has gone through, and he does a 134.5. Ollie Mellors then to go fastest. Reese Gates is meant to be out there as well, but Ocean Price, the last man to go, accelerates now up then towards the tarmac section, heading towards the donut, flicked around that, on board with Ocean Price as now he heads for the gravel. Ride with him, you can hear the gravel clattering underneath the car. So can the Volkswagen go quicker? Let's see, 134.5 to beat. George Leckley we didn't see, but he has gone second. Nabila Tejpar goes over the flying finish. Actually, he put the Stratos time in the context of this. He's done very well. Reese Gates has gone fastest then. So while we've been watching Ocean Price, a 1:32.1 puts Reese Gates at the top of the times. So that's the time to beat, 1:32.1. Can Ocean Price here in the Volkswagen, the specially constructed R5 car, go top? Let's see as he heads now onto the tarmac, avoids the tyre stack. Jessica Hockley sitting alongside, according the route to him, and the time is not going to be improved upon. It's going to be slower look, so let's see, a 35, 36, 37 over the line, 1:37.6. That puts the car third fastest then at the end of SS1, so 1:37.6 for Ocean Price, and the cars then now will line up and go again. Same stage, same layout. And we'll see who the improvers are second time around. So right now, it is Reese Gates then that is the fastest, 1:32.1, ahead of Ollie Mellors, 1:34.5. George Leckley, third, currently on... Sorry, George Leckley fourth, I should say, in the Mitsubishi, 1:38.2. And then fifth, David Wright. Sixth fastest, Kevin Ferber, that we had seen. Ben Mellors, seventh. 1:45.8. And then another of the Toyotas, Ben Lakodo's car, 1:46.0. So that is how they run at the moment. So the Mitsubishi of George Leckley in the mix. Kevin Ferber needing to find some time on the next run. And Steve Rockingham, I think, with the Subaru could be one to watch as well as we get set then for special stage 2 out of those demo runs. Interesting to see more the variety perhaps than the actual times that are being set, but even so, some great machinery on display. And now that they've had a chance to assess the stage, go straight back into it, which is pretty rare in most rallies. Let's see whether the times tumble, as people now with the extra knowledge, the extra commitment, are keen to push on even further. So the cars should be getting underway imminently for stage 2, and again 30-second starts. So out of that unofficial service park being brought forward then now, and again turn through that right through the tunnel, and then good to go. The Volkswagen that we were just looking at, the Ocean Price car, the successor to the Polo WRC, built to those R5 regulations, and very successful car in privateers' hands. And there, a great miscellany of cars. You see the 205 T16 in the background. So as we get set for stage 2, let's quickly look back at some of the highlights of SS1. First to go with that oh so familiar engine note, the Escort Mark II, in the hands then of Jason Leckley. He was the first one through the tunnel and the first one to set a target time. Even though he's running in the demo class, the cars of course do have their runs timed, and as the Group B machinery came storming through, the times were starting to drop. John Saunders, for example, with the Delta S4, one to watch. So too Stuart Larvae with the 6R4, with the headlights blazing as he came back onto tarmac. Drama at the donut as Martin Spurrell got a bit carried away. The back penduluming round on the Subaru Legacy, costing him a little bit of time, but he regrouped. And this, the Lancia Stratos, then in the hands of Max Girardot. A great car, and one that is always a fan favourite and being driven as hard as ever. It was a race car for the forests, really, and that in the end going nicely in the hands of Max Girardot. Fastest though at the end of SS1, Reese Gates did the time at 1 minute 32.1. Ocean Price in the Volkswagen, a little bit more time to find. So too Kevin Ferber in the Peugeot. Shedding debris, shedding bodywork from underneath the car as he went, Kevin Ferber. So the Peugeot 208, slightly lighter. Is that going to improve speed as we get set for SS2 in the Goodwood Super Special? So there on the line, Jason Leckley. It's not just the cars that take you back, it's also the colour schemes, isn't it? Shell Oils in that black and white livery sponsored hordes of cars across racing and rallying in the 70s into the early 80s. And the Escort Mark II set, ready to go. Driver set, co-driver set. And of course now you've also got the change in the light, because the light is disappearing. The headlights are going to become even more important. So at least they've now got some knowledge of which way the stage is meant to go. And it should be quicker again. It was a time at 1 minute 52.2, first time of asking for Jason Leckley. Set to go, get the final countdown from the officials, and then it will be released. Away goes the Escort then. The car barking its way into the tunnel, blast back into the, not so much daylight, but the dusk now. So different light conditions, even if it's the same stage compared to SS1. But Jason Leckley is attacking this with gusto, no question about it. Heads his way now towards the donut, still on the tarmac. So we've got the grip here. Next car away. In the background you hear the Quattro of Andy Traynor lead the liners around the donut. Pendulums the Escort. It was a wide line, but it works nicely. No dramas. Now onto the gravel comes Jason Leckley, and the headlights working overtime now as he goes through that right and starts the run round the perimeter of the circuit, heading towards more gravel through the chicane. Then the road starts to make that climb, and this perhaps is where, with the older machinery in the demo class, people are being a little bit more careful. You go from the tarmac to broken gravel. It's not quite quick, it must be said. Jason Lefley bouncing his way then now down towards the approach to the race circuit. So you go round the back, round the spectator enclosure, and then drop down onto the circuit itself. Here is the Audi of Andy Trainer. It's Hannu Mikkola car we saw earlier on, looking immaculate, of course. Cars where possible in the period colour schemes. Carrying Hannu Mikkola and Arne Herd's names on the side, on the front flanks. In the Audi colours, it accelerates its way now across the gravel section. 30-second intervals, of course, so the cars come thick and fast. And second time around, the car of the Lepleeds, 112.3 seconds. So number 5 Audi, David Kedworth. Now this, the real sledgehammer from Audi, the S1 E2, introduced at the end of 1985. Very aggressive look, much more power, but even with the aero and the power, it still wasn't able to keep up really with the Peugeot 205s, nor when it arrived on the scene, the Lancia. A slightly improved performance car, one in Pikes Peak with Walter Röhrl at the wheel of it. But surprisingly, despite the aggressive appearance, despite all the knowledge that Audi had, this car came up a bit short in the last days of Group B. David Kedworth is the man behind the wheel. And round the gravel section comes perhaps one of the most spectacular looking of all the Group B cars. Next one through the tunnel, that's going to be the Stuart Larvae ex-Tony Pond 6R4 in the computer vision colours. And again, all the optimism for this car soon dispelled, partly by just how good the Lancia was when it made its debut, and then of course partly due to the tragedy in Portugal in 1986 with Joaquin Santos Ford going off the road and killing spectators. It started to herald the end of the road for Group B. So all the manufacturers that had committed, like Austin Rover, like Ford, like others, soon found these cars redundant. Many found a home in rallycross, which then had a golden age with all these unwanted Group B cars needing a home. But Austin Rover never really got the chance because it was a season that then had a rule change at the end of '86 that was never then able to reflect what the car could have done. Do we have a change in the conditions as well? Looking at the headlights, are they picking up one or two spots of rain maybe now? There is still something quite fantastic though about the 6R4 noise, and when the car made its debut on that Lombard RAC rally at the back end of 1985 and Tony Pond hustled it through the forest to take a podium finish, legions of British fans came out and cheered him on, and everyone thought, here we are, British driver, British car, British team, British rallying is on the up. Malcolm Wilson was the man given the second car, his first proper works effort. So down the dip comes Stuart Larvae, makes the run up towards the timing line, as there is the Lancia of Tim Bendel and Roland Jones. This another ex-Carlos Sainz car, as you might have gathered from the Repsol livery, at the HF Integrale. And the track conditions, track surface is changing, you see, wiper on, so it's getting a little bit slippery as well as dark. Starting to look very RAC rally, isn't it, this now? The good old spectator stage that you used to have on the first day of the event, which were largely either race circuits or stately homes, run in mixed conditions. You had the gravel and the tarmac in many places, and quite often the weather was nasty, so now that you've got some spots of rain just to add to it, it feels like a good old-fashioned rally, this, doesn't it? So the Lancia through. Again, running in the demo class, so you do get times, but there isn't an official time element, whereas this car, the Lancia Stratos, does run in the time class. So Max Girardot and Marcus Wills in the car. The Bertoni designed Stratos, designed for Group 4, and 18 World Championship events fell to it. Partly World Championship for drivers, partly the earlier incarnation World Championship for mates against Fiat and Alpine and Ford and Opel. And long after you thought it would have been competitive. The likes of Marco Allen still dusted one down with the RAC Rally every year. He was determined to try to win in the Stratos. Even in the snow, it had good success on the Monte Carlo, for example, thanks to the efforts of the likes of Ben and Darniche. But it was not just the appearance, it was the noise, really, almost like a Ferrari Formula 1 car, given the roof and told to go out and attack forests. And there are precious few still in competition because their values have soared. That's Girardeau, who deals in classic cars, knows all about the market, and has found this car for the event, coming then across the gravel. Headlights piercing the gloom, and now, of course, into the timed element, the clock becomes more important. He did a 1:23.8 on his first run, but of course now you've got the change in the light, and you've got the spots of rain falling as well. So the back of the Stratos steps out of line as Max Girardeau heads up towards the tarmac. Through that little chicane, the left, right, and then that glorious noise. Down through the gears, into the chicane. So the finish line beckons. 1 minute 48.5 then for Max Girardeau. Now we head back to Toyota. This is Gary Lecodu with Bill Painter alongside in the GT4 ST185. Now this was a pretty rapid car first time of asking. So let's see what it can do now in the Works Toyota colours then. Gary Lecodu around that gravel section. The car popping and banging on overrun through that little chicane, jumps back onto the tarmac, and now makes the run up towards the flying finish. You've got the chicane, of course, to cope with first. But Lecodu now goes down through the gears. Got Ben Mellors also out on the stage, but Lecodu goes fastest then. 1 minute 45.4. Now Mellors completes his run, and it's a 1 minute 49 that he does. So it is at the moment Lecodu who is the fastest. Now the 1984 world champion Stig Lonquist is on stage with the Escort Cosworth WRC. Again, as you see from the decals on the side of it, this car owned by Nick Jarvis, for whom Stig has raced also, is an ex-Carlos Sainz Luis Moya car. Steve Rockingham has just gone through in the Subaru Impreza and goes second. 1 minute 47.6 for him. And what can Steve Lonquist do there now? Racer, rallycrosser on occasion, and of course hugely successful rallyist. His son Tom is going to share a car with him in the St Mary's Trophy over the weekend, so the family is here mixing disciplines, and Steve Lonquist should go second, I think, looking for the time now. That's George Lepley, who was very rapid indeed on the first run. 146.8 then for Stig Lonquist. So he goes second, but George Lepley, what did he do first time of asking? He was in the 38s. David Wright now goes quicker by, gosh, 9 seconds than anybody else. So a really, really impressive effort for David Wright in the Focus. But what can George Lepley do? Because now, of course, with the Mitsubishi Evo 10, you're getting up to the very latest type of car here. WD-40 backed. Driver is George. Headlights pierce the gloom as he comes up towards the chicane. So let's see, a 36.1 is the time to beat. And it's a 1:35.7 to go top then. 1 minute 35.7 for George Lepley. Really good effort there. Next through here. Whoops, getting it wrong at the chicane is Ollie Mellors. Time wasted there. Slithered out wide towards the bail. So Ollie Mellors with the Proton, the R5 spec car, losing time. That is going to come back to bite, I think. So let's see what he can do there. This is Reese Gates. Now, Reese Gates is an absolute star, the man from Chesterfield, and this is the car he regularly runs, and you'll see from his own colour scheme adorning it, different livery on either side, but the Reese Gates rallying logo is there, and absolutely delighted to be part of this. He's gone quicker than anybody within the first element of the lap. It is of the stage, I should say. James Yates is the co-driver. Reese began his rally career back in 2013 in a Suzuki Swift with 4th in class on the Alan Healy Memorial stages. 2015 English Rally champion. The driver 4th in the 2016-2017 British Rally Championship. And Reese Gates should be the man to beat. State-of-the-art car that he knows inside out. And let's see, 135.7 to beat. He did a 132.1 on the first run on this stage. You would not bet against him, would you? Drops down onto tarmac then. So you've got the stealth livery on one side, you've got the almost Ford colours, the blue and white on the other. So there, Reese Gates, 135.7 to beat. Can he do it? Should be able to. Kevin Ferber has completed his run, losing time through the chicane. Absolutely flies Reese Gates, and a 129.5, even quicker than he went on the first run. So a mega effort as you go on board now with Ocean Price. Now he's got time to make up, 137.6 with the Volkswagen Polo GTI R5. The sort of car that made its debut in the Spanish rally at the end, World Championship rally at the end of 2018, Rally Catalunya, where Peter Solberg drove the car, but it was really aimed at the private market, never a manufacturer efforts to go into effectively WRC2, private hands in R5. Now over the timing line, a 33.1, much better for Ocean Price than the first run. 133.1 on that stage puts him second. Elfyn Evans, meantime, wants a bit more fun with the new GR Yaris. Two cars that you've seen already on the rally stage here, having been rally-proofed, if you like, by Speedworks Motorsport, the team that runs Toyota Gazoo Racing UK in the British Touring Car Championship. So given these two Yarises, bit of work underneath to make sure that stones don't fly and thicken against anything nasty. And then here they are having their premiere effectively. And you can imagine quite a lot of these going into the hands of rally fans around the world, can't you? Because it's a little pocket rocket for about 30,000 quid, provisionally. 257 brake horsepower, 3-cylinder, 4-wheel drive, turbo, 1600 engine, and a serious bit of kit. So the Yaris in the hands of here, Elfyn Evans, sprints from the chicane up towards the flying finish. And the teams then get ready for stages 3 and 4, which again will be a mirror of one another, but run on a different part of the Goodwood estate here. So instead of using this part of the race circuit, they'll use the other end with the chicane and Woodcote. So there's going to be a little bit of stage build to finish, but it's been a lively part of the evening thus far, seeing stages 1 and 2. So with 2 stages done, let's try and have a look at how we stand. First of all, who did what on stage 2. So Reese Gates was the fastest, 1 minute 29.5, with Ocean Price second fastest. But look at the margin on that stage alone, 3.6 seconds. George Lepley, third fastest, so 6.2 seconds slower. These are the gaps rather than the actual times. David Wright, fourth, only half a second down, though, on George Lepley. Ollie Mellors, fifth. We saw him making a mistake at the chicane on the gravel. So he drops then 9 seconds away from Reese Gates on stage 2. And then you get to the older cars with Gary Lacodu, 15.9 seconds down. But bragging rights, because he's ahead of Stig Lonquist in the Escort Cosworth. And then 8th on SS2, Steve Rockingham and Fiona Scarrett with the Impreza WRC. Then you have Max Girardot with the Lancia Stratos humbling more modern cars like Ben Mellor's Toyota, Nabila Tejpar, a great enthusiast, Nabila, with the Proton, and Kevin Ferber, not shining this evening, surprisingly Kevin, who's an experienced and quick driver, with a 208 T16, another R5 car, but get the feeling there's still plenty more to come from that before the end of the evening. So, SS3, SS4 coming up shortly, and we'll turn our attention to the activity on the other stages very shortly indeed, because the crews will be getting ready, so too the officials. special stage 3 will begin, of course, in a few minutes' time. This time around, they, having come from the race circuit to the perimeter, straight towards the donut, then will blast their way towards the chicane and then up towards Woodcote Corner before using the perimeter, and this time they will come under the tunnel towards the stage finish. So it's a slight reverse of what you just got used to seeing, but also using different parts of the circuit and the perimeter roads. So in a few minutes' time, once the stage build is done, when the officials are all happy, we'll be back in business. These, in the meantime, a look at the cumulative times. So Reese Gates now sitting on 3 minutes 1.6 seconds, taking the times of stages 1 and 2 together, and he puts himself into the lead of the event therefore. So as the darkness comes upon us here at Goodwood, with the activity tonight needing to be done by 8 o'clock, we are at just after 6:30, and the cones being moved so that the new stage is ready to go, and then the drivers will be good in a few minutes' time. Before that, let's look back at stage 2. Once again, it was the Escort Mark II of Jason Leppi that barked its way first out onto the stage, attacking the donut, and the Shell Oils Escort entertaining many. To the gravel he went. Mac Girardeau with the Stratos, another fan favourite car, another great iconic car of the period, blasted his way onto the gravel, running in the timed competition and against more modern competition and more modern machinery. Kevin Ferber with the Peugeot, still struggling. Car looking spectacular, sparks flying as he accelerated onto the gravel, giving the brakes a real workout. But he also had to cope with the change in the conditions, and he got it wrong. That's why he lost time, going down towards the tarmac section off the gravel, running out of road, being badly delayed. And he wasn't the only one, because Ollie Mellors at the chicane also got it wrong, slithering in too quickly. That compromised the second element, and he, I'm afraid, finding himself with Max Freeman alongside him up against the bales. So it shows just how precise you've got to be. But Reese Gates, the real star of the show so far. Should be no surprise, I suspect, that Reese Gates is as good as he is on this, because he is much underrated, but a very, very quick driver indeed, and looking as though he's going to be hard to beat over the remaining stages. Reese reckoning that, seeing that everybody knows about Goodwood, it's the summer's biggest motorsport party like Glastonbury, but with even better music, he says. But it's a real privilege, he reckons, to be involved in Speedweek, and he's absolutely right. He's also going to be in action in the Drift Kana that we will have as well over the course of the weekend. So that's partly why the car is in dual livery, one for rallying and one for the Drift Kana. So let's have a look then at Reese Gates' last stage and just see how quick he was. So away from the start, through the tunnel, and it's not wide, believe me, through there, but blast out the other side, flicks the car through that 90 left, burst of acceleration, and then is left and left again through effectively an elongated hairpin, still staying on tarmac here. Got the race circuit chicane to the right, round the back of the buildings, into the donut, throw the car in, four-wheel drive, remember. Reese Gates accelerates then onto the gravel. Traction bites, drags him out the other side. Despite the rain in the air, very quick, very precise as the car danced its way up around the top of the stage. on the gravel, and then the road dips downhill. That is where Kevin Ferber got it wrong. No such dramas, though, for Reese Gates. He sprints his way through that little chicane, back onto tarmac, and then accelerating up towards the line. Reese Gates through the flying finish in the Fiesta, the type of car that had title for Sébastien Ogier. Event wins for the likes of Elfyn Evans on Rally GB. Right, stage 3 should be getting underway very shortly. The first car to get onto SS3 should be at 12 minutes past 7. And this is how we run at the moment on the aggregated times. So it is Reese Gates 9 seconds ahead of Ocean Price, Ollie Mellors 3rd ahead of George Lepley, David Wright's Ford Focus is 5th, Gary Lakodu 6th ahead of Ben Mellors, and then Kevin Ferber in 8th spot. Martin Overington 6R4 9th if you take the times from the demos as well as the competitive runs, ahead of Steve Rockingham. So a good effort that in the 6R4. Matt Girardeau 11th. The Escort Mark II 12th overall. Jason Lepley ahead of Martin Sparrow and then Nabila Tejpar. David Kedworth's Audi Sport Quattro 15th and John Saunders Lancia 16th in the times. Not here, or not being run this evening. He's away doing some filming, so he will arrive tomorrow. The car is here. Now the Escort, good to go at the front of the queue, is that of Jason Lepley. Behind him you see the Adam Marsden Audi Quattro A1, and then the S1 E2, the so-called short Quattro, in the hands of David Kedworth. So 3 distinct periods, represented in the holding area at the start, ready to get SS3 underway. So this time around, you accelerate up the tarmac, turn right, head to the donut, back onto tarmac, up towards the chicane, and then make the run halfway around Woodcote and back before you go onto the perimeter roads once more, and it finishes this time through the tunnel and turn sharp left, finishing where you started, stages 1 and 2. So the first car was due away at 1912. We are behind that for some reason. Southern Car Club marshals and officials organising the countdown. So as soon as everybody is ready, we're good to go with the spectacular Escort in the hands of Jason and Susanna Lepley. So should be on the change of the minute that the little red light will blink to green, and Jason Lepley now gets that 10-second into a 5-second count, ready to accelerate away. Now, off he goes, up the pit straight. You see the arrows pointing, turn sharp right, and that's exactly what he does off the road to the perimeter of Goodwood, flicks around the donut, on to the power, and stay on that perimeter road, round the back of the buildings now. Real challenge here, first man to go, and having to work out the stage, and of course do it in the darkness. So, from the perimeter, back across the racetrack, round the chicane, and then staying on the race circuit, but going in the wrong direction, up towards Woodcote Corner. Just as you get towards Lavin Straight, then there's a hairpin. off the circuit onto the runoff area round the outside of Woodcote. That's no doubt going to claim a few over the weekend. And then you go left through the Vales, right the other side of them, and you're onto that perimeter road once more now, accelerating towards the tunnel in the end, because you will come through this section. There's another chicane put in. There it is. Straighten the car up. Burst of acceleration once again. And then you're approaching that 90 right that brings you into the tunnel. Now let's go to Audi, because this is, in fact, you've got Quattro and the Escort together. How's the Quattro got ahead? Is that a somewhat confused Quattro, I wonder? But Jason Lepley coming up to the line. How was the Audi got ahead of him? Only assume that car is completely wrong slotted. So that should be the Adam Marsden Audi, but as I say, I fear has gone somewhat haywire. Now this is David Kedworth with the Sport Quattro, the ex-Valterol Christian Geisdorfer car. And up against it is the ex-Kenwood Metro 6R4 here, the car from the Scottish Rally Championship, one of the real Clubman's cars, although Kenwood did take the Flying Chris Packet to some good stage times on the RAC Rally. This is Martin Overington at the wheel of it, Robert Spencer sitting alongside him. And again, you've got that great noise that the 6R4 makes through that chicane between the Vales. Being oh so careful, of course, because there's not that much width, of course, to thread the car between them. And somebody in strife there. That is Stuart Larvae. That's the 6R4 of Stuart Larvae, the computer vision car. So Larvae gets going. That was coming towards the chicane, wasn't it, as he joined the race circuit. So Stuart Larvae in trouble. He has got going again, but time lost. I've seen quite a few people making mistakes this evening, as there into the tunnel out the other side comes Martin Overington, really pushing on through that section there. So the 6R4 up to the flying finish, breaks the beam. So Stuart Larvae's 6R4, we'd touched on having its problems. Here's the stage, as I say, very, very dark for the teams to cope with, and identifying reference points, especially perhaps for those that have spent precious little time here before, very difficult indeed. This is the Larvae 6R4 heading up towards the completion of its run, because it's about to now head towards the tunnel. Huge amount of effort has gone in by the officials to build the rally stages. And here in the background, Subaru rockets away. Remember, the start is on the pit straight. Into the tunnel goes Stuart Larvae, out the other side, through that final 90 left. As you look there at Martin Spurrell, with Terry Dolphin sitting alongside him. Now, Martin Spurrell got all crossed up when he was on the earlier stage, stage 2, through that donut, when the car got away from him. There, ready to go, the timed section is Max Girardot. But up to your Stratos then, dating back to 1974, blasts away, and now we're into the proper timed runs here for SS3. The best sounding rally car ever, discussed. It's got to be up there, hasn't it? So Max Girardot, Marcus Willis sitting alongside him, now guide the car towards the chicane on the race circuit, then onto the tarmac in the opposite direction from the race use. That's the chicane exit, Missy Woodcote. The headlights coping with the gloom, so the sectors, the splits within this, get a proper timed run at the end and see exactly what sort of pace Stratos has. You can anticipate the newer cars in the time run, of course, to go faster, but even so, the Stratos is being driven with a great deal of commitment, no question about it. So off the racetrack, back to that perimeter road, and then approaching the chicanes that will take him towards the tunnel, and then up towards the flying finish here. Max Girardot onto the power. accelerates now through the tunnel. That wags out, doesn't it, in that typical Stratos fashion, rear-wheel drive car through the tunnel, out the other side. Down through the gears, turn sharp left, up towards the flying finish. And let's see what Max Girardot can do. It's a 1:48.5. Same time as he got, actually, for SS2, different stage. Right, there, good to go. He's 21. That is Steve Lonquist, who makes a hesitant start. Race winner here in a Rover SD1 in the previous editions of the members meeting, but at 1:48.5 is the time that now Ben Mellors aims for. He does a 1:40.6 to go quickest in his Toyota. And how is Lonquist getting on? He's being a bit cautious, must be said, at the moment, but perhaps understandable. Philip Hall sitting alongside him, the original Steve, he likes to call himself. But Steve Lonquist, racer as well as rallyman. Still hugely enthusiastic, but in problems, is he? Let's see. He has got a drama and needs to fire it up and get going again. And the car doesn't want to fire up and get going again, so this is costing him dear. A 1:44.6 from Gary Lacodu. And there is Lonquist back up and running, but he's made a real mess of the approach to the chicane. And you saw how much time he lost there, so he's going to be probably in the 2-minute mark if he's not careful here. A 1:48.5 was the stage time done by Max Girardot. There is David Wright out there with his Focus, and then there's this man, George Lepley. George really is pressing on. He's been really good thus far this evening. Not the fastest, no, but he's been there or thereabouts. And he's fastest thus far within the first element of the stage. So as long as he gets the chicane right, and it's looking good for him, he should be well on target for another good stage time here. And of course, you add them all together, that's how you get your event result. So right now it is Ben Mellors who is the fastest. What can the WD-40 backed Mitsubishi Evo X Evo 10 do in the hands of George Lepley? Flips from the race circuit back onto those perimeter roads. More of them going through the tunnel, blasting their way up towards the stage finish. Steve Lonquist, of course, to go through, and it is a very slow time indeed for Steve Lonquist, losing effectively 25 seconds or so in that drop at the chicane. There is Lepley up towards the end of the stage. So a 1:38.8 is now the time to beat that of David Wright. And this is going to be good, isn't it? This is going to be a 1:29.7 for George Lepley. Very good indeed. So it's Lepley from Wright at the moment. Where do we go to next? We go to the Proton. The Militech Par, I think that is, looking into the darkness, with Reese Gates sitting alongside. The Miller, great enthusiast for her rallying. The R5 Proton. There's another one of those in the hands of Ollie Mellors, and then there's Reese Gates and Ocean Price. And Reese Gates has been the absolute rocket so far this evening. So what can the Militech Par do? Her times have been a little sedate thus far. There's also Kevin Ferber, but again, way down, 12 seconds off the ultimate pace, Kevin Ferber, which is a real surprise. Militech Par here. Oh, stalls it, bogs down, loses revs, loses power, has to start the car up again. That was getting the hairpin wrong, just ran wide and seemed to run towards the barriers. Braked hard, stalled it, and he's being reeled in, look now. She parks, virtually gets out of the way of the quicker car going through. That is Reese Gates, I think, who has gone storming by. So Reese Gates, the man to beat thus far, and he's got a 1:29.5 to beat now, which is the time of Ollie Mellors. Is he going to be able to do it? Well, thankfully that slower car of Militech Par didn't get in the way. She did exactly the right thing, got out of the way of the quicker headlights behind, and so a 29.5 to beat for Reese Gates. The Chesterfield Flyer heads up towards the end of the stage. Ocean Price, meantime, working hard at the wheel of the Volkswagen. So what is the time going to be for Reese Gates when he goes across the line? It's not quick enough. In fact, only a 1:34, so 5 seconds down, interestingly. So that's going to be very costly unless he can claw back the lost time later on in the evening. Right, Ocean Price into the tunnel. Reese Gates now given a proper time, 1:23.5, so that's good, that's better. Quite sure what was in the system. And Ocean Price goes second then, that's going to be a what, 1:26.8 for him. So a rogue time seemed to creep in there from Reese Gates, but a 1:23.5 is the fastest. And so stage 4 is the same stage again. So now they've had a look at it, arguably they can push a little bit harder now, a bit more confidence can be built in. We have this final stage of this evening, and then stages 5, 6 and 7 interspersed amongst the race activity tomorrow. So these are the stage times. Reese Gates the fastest on SS3 from Ocean Price and then Ollie Mellors. George Lepley 4th ahead of David Wright, and then Ben Mellors with Steve Rockingham's Subaru 7th and Kevin Ferber's Peugeot 8th. 9th, Gary Lakodu, and then Max Girardeau in the Stratos. Giant killing here, going 10th ahead of Nabila Tejpar, and a very troubled Steve Lonquist after he made a mistake and, of course, lost a lot of time as he tried to sort out the problem. So what does all that now do to the combined result of all this? Let's see, because Reese Gates is now 12.5 seconds gulp up on Ocean Price. Ollie Mellors is 3rd, just under a second ahead of George Lepley. Big gap back to David Wright, who is 5th. Ben Mellors is then 6th ahead of Gary Lakodu and Kevin Ferber 8th. Then it's Steve Rockingham ahead of Max Girardeau. Girardeau in turn is clear of Nabila Tejpar, and Steve Lonquist 3 minutes and 26 seconds back, making me wonder whether he actually got a maximum on that stage for his problem. We shall research. So that's where we stand thus far. We're getting ready then now for stage 4. So you know the score by now. The same stage again. Teams get ready, and they'll be brought forward with once more the guinea pig, if you like, being Jason Lepley. He'll be the first man to go in the Mark II Escort. And as soon as the officials are happy, then everybody will be brought into order. Right, now let's have a look at what the stage was like on board with Ocean Price. So this is the Volkswagen, the Polo R5. From the race circuit onto the perimeter roads, around the donut, a little bit of time loss maybe there. Darts out, see how narrow this section is. You've got the straw bales, you've got the trees, you've got limited runoff, so you've got to be absolutely precise here. Then there's this sharp left that takes you onto the race circuit. There's the chicane. Turn right, that's the chicane exit, so you loop round the chicane, flick left, back on the race circuit, heading towards Woodcote. Hairpin onto the runoff area on the outside of the circuit, so you go the wrong side of the grass there. But then, instead of rejoining the circuit, flick left once again, back onto the perimeter section. So all of this element of Goodwood wouldn't be able to be used if the fans were here. So it's a mixed blessing in a sense. It gives the organisers more of the perimeter roads to use, make a different sort of a stage. No gravel on this, purely tarmac really. Ultra precise Ocean Price as he now goes right, drops down into the tunnel. Up the other side, brake hard, turn left. Up to the flying finish. Job done. And that was 1 minute 26.8 seconds of the rally course. So we are almost ready for stage 4. Goodwood needs to be shut by 8 o'clock, so we've got half an hour to rattle through everybody, and we are just about set, I think, as the Yaris course cars go through, or demo cars I should say, go through. So this is Jari-Matti Latvala, former Ford, then Volkswagen, now Toyota World Championship driver, and ready to go is the Escort in the hands of Jason Lepley then. So he again will be first. The Escort Mark II, for many, the ultimate rally car. thousands of rally wins, be it World Championship, National Championships, still going strong in clubmen's events and indeed in historics. 31:00 is the start time given. So the clock ticks on down. And half a minute or so before Jason Leppley accelerates into business. Shell Oil's liveried ex-Ari Vatanen Escort. Set to go. Behind is the slightly confused Audi that we found on the wrong course on the earlier stage. But the 5-second countdown begins now for Jason Leppley. He's go. Little green light blinks on, away he blasts then, so up the pit straight. Turn right. And now you've got to be so precise on the exit of the donut, because then you're onto these narrow lanes. Probably not going quick enough to make a huge mess of it, must be said, but the commitment is there. And those trees and those bales ready to catch out the unwary. Now this next section, this sharp left back towards the race circuit itself, was what caught out Steve Lonquist. Leppley looks like he's got it absolutely right. Here he comes onto the race circuit through the waiting zone for the safety car during a race, and now the Mark II Escort onto the racetrack now. ...1981, Ari Vatanen world champion in a Mark II Escort. The next Ford World Championship success, 2017, Sebastian Ogier. So it's a very barren period in terms of winning titles. Won rallies, yes, but not world titles. So there is the Escort, flicked around the bales. Under the floodlights, and then the stage plunges back into the darkness as Jason Leppley, with a squeal of tyres, accelerates them out of the sharp 90 right, through the tunnel, and heads towards the line. The car sideways as ever. I think it was Roger Clark that said as long as you weren't looking out of the back window of an Escort, it was all good, because you knew you could save it. There, ready to go, is the ex-Audi Quattro S1 Evo 2. Car launched at the end of 1985. Very aggressive aero package, bags of power. But even this, even with what you see, plus all the Audi knowledge and engineering expertise, couldn't really keep up with the Peugeot 205s and then the Lancia Delta S4. So mixed results really, this car, but it was certainly one of the most spectacular to look at. And when it was injected with even more power and Valterol took it up Pikes Peak, it was a winning car. Quite big in some respects, even though it's the short Quattro. Makes that oh so distinctive 5-cylinder Quattro noise. Brakes hard, goes sharp left. So this brings David Kedworth onto the circuit, out of the chicane. There are cars behind him, as you can see, being released and lapping, or travelling even quicker. John Saunders with the Lancia Delta S4 is the next one to go. And has the Quattro got a problem? Yes, it did. Finds a gear now. Gets going, but the Audi hesitates, and that's gone against him. Quattro being driven cautiously, but it makes you wonder whether there is something sinister there. Is it pure caution, this, or does it have a problem? Because the speed does not seem to be coming. That said, it is running in the demo class, so the time not as necessarily relevant as it would be for others. Behind is the Adam Marsden Audi looking at that. But up to the end of the stage is about to come then. David Kedworth comes out of the tunnel, heads towards the flying finish. And that is his work done for this evening. 3 more stages to go tomorrow afternoon. Right, back to the 6R4s, which have been distinctive, not only with the noise, but the colour schemes as well. You've got the Martin Overington ex-Kenwood car there in the Golden One livery and in the Works colours. And I think John Davenport is actually here as part of the organisation team. John that ran Austin Rover Motorsport for not just rallying, although he came from a rally background himself, but also circuit racing. John here, he oversaw the team. The cars debuted initially in Clubman's events. I'm right in saying Colin Malkin drove one of the original prototypes in national events, but then the car sprouted the wings and got more power and came into World Championship events at the end of 1985 on the RAC Rally. Right, there, sideways, Martin Overington. Once the Group B regulation had gone, many of the cars found a home in rallycross, but also Austin Rover had a multi-discipline 6R4 series that had some rallies and also some circuit races. And there was one at Donington where they all plunged off at Redgate on the first lap and all quickly drove out of the gravel trap again with their four-wheel drive, leaving marshals with nothing to do. Away goes the 205 T16, the ex-Ewer Kankkunen car, which is being driven by Lee Kedworth. So this is the T16 E2, the second generation with the extra front aero, the big rear wing on the back. It was Ari Vatanen that debuted and showed instantly the pace of the 205, but the world champion that drove one initially was Timo Salonen, and then Ewer Kankkunen took the 1986 crown after the exclusion was overturned of Peugeot from the Sanremo rally. Marco Allen thought he'd won it because he went off and did, not many people did, but he did, the Olympus rally in America at the very end of the season and got enough points to win the championship. But when the officials overturned the exclusion of the 205s from Sanremo, Kankkunen got his points back and ultimately won the championship, so Marco Allen was never World Rally champion. So Lee Kedworth pushing on. 205 T16, another car, of course, that evolved into a very good rallycross car when Group B machinery suddenly needed a new home. But the Peugeot programme, overseen by Jean Todt, who recruited Ari Vatanen, as I say, for the original 205, along with Bruno Sabi, and then went after Timo Salonen and Ewer Kankkunen for subsequent seasons. Built a very, very strong team, no doubt about that. And drivers and manufacturers' crowns fell to Peugeot before it elected to rework the cars for rally raids like the Paris-Dakar and also think about Pikes Peak. So Lee Kedworth through, goes through the flying finish, job done, as there is the next Carlos Sainz Lancia. The Delta gets away. This in the hands of Tim Bendel. It's a great variety of cars that's been assembled here by the Southern Car Club, many of which are Goodwood favourites because they come and do the rally stage at the Festival of Speed every year, but trying something very different this evening. So the Lancia perhaps being a little cautious. This is, in fairness, out of the demo category rather than the full timed runs. Next on stage as well is Martin Spurrell's Subaru. So rapidly working through the cars. There the Repsol liveried Lancia works its way up towards the hairpin on the exit of Woodcote. That's Martin Spurrell's Subaru blasting away. The Subaru Legacy, the precursor to the Impreza. So that takes you to, what, 1993. And the car did win the 1993 New Zealand Rally when Colin McRae managed to hold off the challenge of Francois Delacour to give the Legacy its only, if I'm right in saying, World Championship win. And of course Colin then went on to drive the Impreza and great things came. But the Legacy started it all. Whoops. Martin Spurrell, who had a moment at the donut on stage 2, having it at the chicane here on stage 4. Just like the Audi made a distinctive noise, so too did the Subaru. And the Rothmans liveried Legacy here, round the hairpin, round the outside of Woodcote, and then instead of going into the chicane, you turn left and back onto those perimeter roads. So there the Subaru Legacy up towards the end of its final run of the night. Slaloms its way around the bales and then heads towards that 90 left that will drop them down towards the tunnel. Tweak of the handbrake through the left, up to the flying finish, so Martin Spurrell goes through. Completes his final run of the night. Terry Dolphin sitting alongside as we attack the Stratos once more. This is Mac Girardot, who's already busy with the clock running in the second half of the stage. So what can the Lancia do? Well, in fairness, what we've seen from Mac Girardot thus far is that he's very, very good at setting times that keep him in the mix. He's certainly not the slowest, even though it's the oldest of the cars within that time category. To the tunnel he comes. Blasts through. Will come out the other side. The noise echoing off the concrete. Drifts it through the left, through the flying finish. And Mac Girardot is attacking this stage, or attacking the whole event, in the approved fashion, isn't he, with that car? Right, the car we've not seen very much of this evening is Nick's Bjorn Valdegaard Toyota Celica. There's Ben Mellors up towards the exit of the chicane. There should also be Gary Lakodu on the stage as well now. So Mellors heading towards the tunnel. There it is. Squeal of tyres, and again two-wheel drive technology. Good run that by Ben Mellors, so 1 minute 34.9 is the time. Now this is Gary Lakodu. Bill Painter is sitting alongside him, and again this has been a competitive car thus far in the event this evening. So the time to beat now is 1 minute 34.9. Four-wheel drive should give it the advantage, of course, over what we've had before, the two-wheel drive, Toyota and Lancia. So towards the run to the tunnel comes Lakodu. Time to beat 134.9. Is it going to be doable? It's going to be close, isn't it? 32, 33 into the left. I'm not sure he's going to do it. So Lakodu does a 35.8, slightly slower than in the GT4 rather than the Celica RA40. Now Steve Rockingham is out on the stage with his Subaru. There it is. And there should also be good to go in a moment, Steve Lonquist. So Steve Rockingham turns his way through in the Christoph Holovich car. Had some world, but a lot of European outings. There it is, multicoloured. So Steve Rockingham in the Impreza WRC accelerates up towards the final run of the night through the tunnel, and then that one corner to go. Let's see what he can do. He's got a 134.9 to beat. He's not going to do it. So Ben Mellors has been a real hero thus far. 137.5 then for Steve Rockingham. Now what can Steve Lonquist do? It looks like he's managed to get through the chicane safely this time, which is a tick. Lights on inside the cab so that the co-driver can read the instructions. with a short, sharp stage like this, still reliant on the co-driver. This slightly shorter, in fact, than stages 1 and 2. That was 1.2 miles. This is 0.99 of a mile. So it is slightly shorter, but you're still going to be precise. And as Stig discovered on the first run through, you cannot make a mistake. All the cars, of course, in period colour schemes, and the Repsol sponsorship that Carlos Sainz took with him. Carlos himself came out of initially single-seater car racing before he went into rallying, with Marlborough's backing on his Sierra Cosworth, but then of course had huge success for decades. Through the flying finish, 1 minute 39.6 then is a Lonquist time, slower than the Stratos even. Now David Wright has been really handy in the Ford Focus thus far this evening. Car from 2001, and it's in strife, run out of road, and now David Wright wastes all the time. So a costly mistake shows that you're going to have to push ever so slightly too hard, and it can all unravel for you. David Wright heading towards the tunnel. The Focus very, very successful over its time in the World Rally Championship, 44 event wins, and David Wright goes through 1:44.6, kicking himself for that mistake. Now George Lepley should be next. That's him, and he has been very, very quick all evening, so this could be the new benchmark time. He's got to try and beat a 1:34.9. So can he get to the flying finish in just under half a minute from now? Let's see. Looking good for him. George Lepley with Wayne Sissons sitting alongside the Mitsubishi Evo 10. Sparks coming off the brakes. You can see the amount of abuse they're being given, but this does look good, doesn't it? 1:34.9 to beat. He's going to smash that. Comes out the other side of the tunnel. Could just about stay in the 20s. This couldn't it? He comes up to the flying finish. It does. 1:27.8. 7 seconds quicker than anybody else. Fantastic effort that by George Lepley. Really, really good. But that's not to say that he's going to end up fastest. There's Kevin Ferber, Nabila Tejpar, Ollie Mellors, Reese Gates, and Ocean Price still to go. Kevin Ferber's had a bit of a checkered evening, what with one drama and another. Let's see how he pans out here on the final run as they come. So just like George Lepley with the Mitsubishi, Kevin Ferber too, showing all the sparks coming off the brakes, shows how hard they're being used, even on a cold night, even on a stage that's not even a mile long. But it's so stop-start, you have to stand on them, and that's exactly what he is doing. So Kevin Ferber heading towards the end of the stage, will thread his way now towards the tunnel. Doesn't run as far out wide there as 1 or 2 have done. Comes out the other side. George Lepley still the man to beat. More sparks fly, but it's a slow run again. Kevin Ferber is going to be in the 30s. 1:35.9 for him. 1:35.9 is the time done in the Peugeot. Now Reese Gates is going to be well worth watching. We've seen that all evening, and he is set, ready to go. 1:27.8 to beat. Reese Gates at the stage start. Ollie Mellors is out there, but away now goes Yates. So Reese Gates turns his way through the right. And the time to beat, 1:27.8. Here's the donut, which he negotiates beautifully. The dual liveried Ford Fiesta R5. And the way that he's going, predicted position, he's going to be top. Quicker than anybody up to the first sector. Ollie Mellors does a 1:27.1 then, so Ollie Mellors sets the new benchmark time. So let's see what Reese Gates can do, because the time that's being shown there is up to the end of sector 2. 1:27.1 then is the Ollie Mellors time. 7/10 up on the certainly very quick George Lepley. Right, out of the chicane now comes Yates. So sector 1, sector 2, better than anybody. What's it going to be at the very end of the stage? Let us see. Turns right, flicks through the left, through the right. Will brake as late as he possibly can for the next section. Back pendulum slightly, but it's looking good nonetheless as he comes now up towards the flying finish. The clock's not running, but let's see whether it's going to be good enough then. A 1:27.1 to beat. Whoops, way wide there, but it's a 1:21.8. Amazing stuff this by Reese Gates. 1:21.8. We need him in the shootout, not just the drift corner. Very impressive indeed. So that leaves us then now with the Villa Cheshpar on the stage and Ocean Price yet to go. But Reese Gates, very much the man to beat. The Villa Cheshpar here, round the hairpin, takes you from the race circuit at Woodcote back in the right direction, albeit on that run-off tarmac. And then back onto the perimeter roads. As away now goes the Volkswagen in the hands of Ocean Price, and this is how the stage looks on board. Into the donut. Through this narrow section then, avoid the bales, avoid the trees. Down through the gears, round the hairpin, blast out the other side, onto the race circuit, turn right, wrong way round the chicane. Looking for grip, cold evening, tyres working as best they can. Hard on the brakes here, down through the gears. Nose dips, brake hard, turn through the hairpin, through the right. Back onto the power now. Through the gears, up and down, through the next chicane, back onto the power. Down, down, down through the gears, turn sharp right, don't go too sideways here. Point it at the tunnel. Up the other side, one more corner to go. It's a 21.8 to beat. He's not going to go quickest, but that was the stage with Ocean Price. 1:24.2 the time. So very dramatic stuff from everybody this evening in the Goodwood SpeedWeek rally stage, part of the Goodwood SpeedWeek presented by Mastercard, and it is Reese Gates that has certainly proved that he's going to be not just hard to beat, probably unstoppable. And so if you look at the stage times, first of all, it is Reese Gates the fastest from Ocean Price at the end of stage 4. Ollie Mellors third, ahead of George Lepley, and then Ben Mellors with the venerable Toyota RA40 doing a great job. Gary Lakodu is sixth, ahead of Kevin Ferber, and then Steve Rockingham.
Yes, we are ready to go rallying. All the cars gathered behind me here for a 2-kilometre stage in and around the Goodwood circuit. Cars from all eras are parked up here at the moment, and we are going to jump in with one of the female drivers. Nabila, how are you doing?
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. What do you think of the stage here at Goodwood?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think they've done a pretty good job. Not quite what I expected in some parts, but no, it's been good fun.
What are you driving today?
I am driving the Proton Iris R5. It's actually my first time out in it competitively, so it's an interesting experience to say the least. I'm learning stuff as I'm going along.
Being a rally driver, what do you think of all the cars collected here today?
Oh, there's some kit here. No, it's awesome to be able to see so many different rally cars and all from different generations. It's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Nabila, and as you can see, the Lancia Stratos, the Peugeot 205 T16 from the Group B era. In the background, driving off, you can see the Audi S1s. The Audi S1 Quattro there at the back, revolutionising the World Rally Championship with its four-wheel drive Quattro system. The Ford RS200 driving out onto the stage there. Followed, of course, by the Metro. And we also have some newer generation rally cars. Let's get a listen to this Lancia Stratos. If he gives us a bit of rev, that would be brilliant. There's just an amazing sound in this car. Maybe I can give him a small signal. No, he can't. Maybe we can get a bit of noise from him. Here we go. Is he gonna start it up? Oh yes, he is. There we go. That's going to be something to watch on the rally stage here at Goodwood SpeedWeek. And as the cars head out onto the special stage here, we are going to go back up to commentary.
So the cars get ready on the pit straight, ready for special stage 5, the first of 3 stages today within the Goodwood SpeedWeek rally stage. And there you can see the cars making their way from the pit lane onto the pit straight, and then the officials will start to marshal them into the restart order. So we have 2 categories here, demo and time. Now, the clock runs on everybody, but the demo cars are doing pretty much just that. They're not fighting for the actual competition, but those in the time section very definitely are, and they will go in reverse order based on their times, cumulative times over the 4 stages of last night. And that means that the first one to go in the time section will be the slowest, the 1984 world champion Stig Lonquist, because he had an absolute nightmare in the dark last night when he completely wrong slotted, slithered off into the bales, stalled it, couldn't get going, and was just, I'm afraid, mortified after a big drama which cost him a lot of time. So he will be the first, and the last to go will be Reese Gates, who is the current rally leader. Now, out of the cars in the demo section, it's going to be Jason Leppley to go first with the Mark II Ford Escort. There you see Ben Bella's Toyota, the ex-Bjorn Valdegard car, making its way forward. Toyotas of that vintage, always very durable, very rugged, very reliable, tending to do very well in the safari rallies, the Ivory Coast, when that was introduced for a brief period a few years later. But you've got a real cross-section here of cars from Group B and before and aft as well, including the Metro 6R4s you can see in there. One, the blue and white Works computer vision livery that Tony Pond and Rob Arthur took to 3rd in the 1985 RAC Rally. Now, let's have a look at the stage here, because this is going to be 1.12 miles long, which means that the cars will accelerate their way from the start up to the donut. Then the gravel on the outside of Madgwick is in use, as well as the race circuit. So you've got some tarmac, you've got some gravel, you've got chicanes put in. 35% of it is gravel, 65% tarmac, and it's a real test for the drivers not to make a tiny mistake here. It's going to be run effectively the opposite direction from what you've just seen, with the cars accelerating away in the direction they're pointing now. They will go through the chicane up towards the hairpin that will put them onto the gravel. So this actually is going to be a reversal of the stage that we had as SS 1 and 2 last night. So all will become apparent once you have the cars onto the stage. They'll go at 30-second intervals. And there you've got Jason Leppley good to go in the Shell Oils liveried Ford Escort. Colours carried by Ari Vatanen and Neil Wilson sitting alongside him for that brief period. There you've got the Audi of Andy Traynor, and then Adam Marsden in the original Quattro, then the Audi Sport Quattro S1, the so-called short Quattro of David Kedworth, and there the Lancia of John Saunders, and the Jolly Club car, the Totiet livery rather than Martini colours, but again we'll talk more about the cars as we go through. The RS200, I didn't see that last night I don't think, James Avis's car, that was another great example of a Group B machine. It had more success really in the UK than in the World Championship. It just came up a bit short in the World Championship, but Mark Lovell did win the British title. So away then goes the Escort. Jason Leppley at the wheel of this Escort Mark II. He will come up from the holding area up to the start of the stage and wants the marshal to come and just clarify something. There will be a clock. They will have a allocated start time, and the clock will tick down. There'll be a little red light which will flick to a green as well, just to confirm when they go, and it will be on the change of minute, I think I'm right in saying, so we should be in about 40 seconds time approx get the car off the line
the World Championship of 1979 fell to a Mark II Escort, that of Johan Valdegaard. In 1981 it was Ari Vatanen who took the title in the Rothmans Escort, but there was barely a rally of the time that didn't have hordes of Mark II Escorts in all sorts of different colour schemes. Shell Oils, colours of the time-adorned rally as well as race cars, and there the Escort is good to go. So they look across, they look at the clock, and in the sunshine, the first part today, SS5 of the Goodwood SpeedWeek rally stage is go. Jason Lepley blasts away that evocative note from the Mark II Escort's 1800cc engine as it barks down then to the approach to Madgwick, speed building. There's a little chicane put in, which they will have to flick through and then head towards the gravel section. So this is the reverse of what they encountered yesterday evening. This was a part of the stage in the reverse direction that caught out 1 or 2 last night. Tweak of the handbrake onto the gravel through the gate goes Jason Lepley, and now makes the climb round the back of the spectator walkway, finds the little jump. Now the road starts to drop downhill, and on the power, Jason Lepley is approaching another of the chicanes here very shortly as he slides his way across the loose. The next car goes. Andy Trainer's Audi Quattro released. They're 30 seconds apart, don't forget, so they come thick and fast, and then into the chicane, which caught out 1 or 2 in the reverse direction last night. The Escort onto the power again, tail wags as up through the gears now goes Jason Lepley. At the end of this section, there is another left and a right, and then they head towards the donut. So it's become a common feature of spectator stages on World Championship events, certainly in the UK. There it is, there's the donut. So round it goes Jason Lepley, beautifully controlled now onto this very narrow section, avoiding the bales and the trees. So threading his way now down towards the perimeter roads that will go right and right and right around the buildings, and then ultimately you head into the tunnel and out the other side. Next car to go is the short Quattro, this in the hands of David Kedworth, this ex-Valterol car. Despite the power, despite the aggressive aero, it just came up short against the Peugeots and the Lancias, really, of its time. It had occasional victories, but it really got its biggest success, I guess, when Valterol went to Pikes Peak in 1987 and won the event that year, and that opened the floodgates to more rally and rallycross teams going to have a go. But the Quattro then now making its way up onto the gravel section. The car, of course, from that era where power was everything, and from 1986, it wasn't long, of course, after the dreadful accident in Portugal that year, that the governing body of the sport said enough's enough, and Group B was gone at the end of the year. So many of these cars then found a home in rallycross instead. But this, in the works colours of the time, heads into the chicane then. So running in the demo class, the car with the Sanremo rally plate on the back heads up now towards the approach to the donut, and David Kedworth then, who was looking after the car nicely last night. Of course, many of these very valuable, and he will come in a moment up to the donut, then heading to the tunnel. We'll start to think about times in due course for some of the drivers, but right now you've got John Saunders with the toting back Jolly Club Lancia, the Delta S4, tackling the chicane. A car that rather tore up the form book of Group B rallying when it arrived on the scene at the back end of 1985, won the RAC rally. Henry Toivonen charged through the forests to win one of the most gruelling RAC rallies of all time against the likes of Audi. But it was in that car, the type of car that Henry had his huge accident, his fatal accident in 1986. So there you have the short Quattro up to the flying finish. That's David Kedworth then done for the moment. Meantime, first on the 6R4s is there. The Flying Crisp packet, the Golden Wonder colours carried by Ken Wood in the Scottish Championship, occasional British events, and on the RAC Rally of 1986 onwards. And although there was a works team, very quickly the 6R4, because you had to build so many to get them homologated, fell into the clubman's hands, and actually was, because it had a 300 horsepower engine for the clubman, 450 for the works cars, for the World Championship cars, was able to survive after the Group B era in domestic events because of the relative small horsepower output compared to other cars. So the 6R4 for many, many years continued to be a real mainstay of club and national events. And this car really, as I say, from the Scottish Championship. It is driven by Martin Overington, who is here with race cars, as well as rally cars, as well as demo cars. So he's getting the most out of Goodwood SpeedWeek this weekend. Another car with a hugely distinctive engine note. Remember, the Williams Formula 1 team had an input into the construction, the design of the 6R4. Through the tunnel blasts Martin Overington, Robert Spencer sitting alongside him, calling out the route, and this is the last corner on it, as wide into the bales, a little bit too rapidly went Martin Overington. Thankfully bounces off the straw, no real harm done, but he'll have just taken a little nibble out of that right rear wheel arch. Now, Tom Williams, rallyist himself, co-driven by his father David, and the reason this is very special to the family is it's the ex-Richard Burns Peugeot 205, which David Williams sponsored. He had a huge input into the late Richard Burns' career, and Tom Williams, the man behind the wheel, threading his way across the gravel. You're into two-wheel drive Peugeot 205s. There is the four-wheel drive Group B version, but this the car that really started it all for the late Richard Burns, co-driven back then, of course, by Robert Reid. They made such a great combination together, and Tom Williams, no mean driver himself, and to have his dad alongside in this car that, as I say, the family sponsored and helped to launch Richard's career, something very special indeed. 205 was not only a popular car in club events, it was also one that Peugeot as a manufacturer picked up to run as a championship, so it had the occasional circuit race but largely rallies, and spawned lots of talent in the early 1990s, Richard Burns being a key example of that, as the car then now threads its way along that narrow section. Next is going to be a right into a right round the back of the Porsche building, and then another right will take you towards the tunnel in a moment, and then up towards the end of the stage. A little bit of understeer as Tom Williams fights the car right, drops into the tunnel now, out the other side any moment, back into the bright sunshine, and you know what happens next. Sharp left, avoid the bales, up to the flying finish. Beautiful drift, and Tom Williams goes through then to finish the stage. Now this, a car that we didn't see yesterday, but Ryan Champion, with wife Gemma alongside, attacking the stage with gusto, the ex-Jari-Matti car, the Italian driver, and good success with this. Restored, of course, to proper livery. It's an original car with the right number plate from the Pro-Drive Subaru era with the British-American tobacco number plates that all the cars ran. And Ryan Champion, rallyist, product trainer, and occasional presenter, knows this car inside out. Very accomplished driver, knows exactly what to do with it. Now, in terms of the overall event, two goes round the donut. I see, I'm just showing off, right? I was going to say, in terms of the overall event, having missed last night, then he's certainly on the back foot. But in terms of stage times, it will be interesting to compare. But doing two goes round the donut, certainly getting extra value for money, won't help the stage time at the end of all of this. Here he comes around the back of the buildings, avoids the bales, lines it up now to dive into the tunnel. It doesn't look that wide at the best of times, but when you're attacking it in anger in a rally car, it's a bit of an eye-opener. Right, Ryan Champion flinging the car sideways, finding where the grip is, flicks the car sideways through the flying finish. Very spectacular, and certainly impressing everybody as he goes. Nabila Tejpar then is on the stage next. Now that means, has Stig Lonquist gone, or is he? Oh, he's out there. So Stig is on the stage already in the time section. So now these cars offering up times that do matter. All of this from here on in are those from the timed part of the event. So Stig Lonquist is the first one to go, and Nabila Tejpar in the Proton Iris that she's taking part in an event with for the first time. She had a drama last night in the dark at the end of the day, going around one of the hairpins coming out of the woodcut, drifted a little bit wide, brake, lost the revs, had to fire the car up again, lost a bit of time, so hoping here for better fortunes. Clock running, and Stig Lonquist then has already been through in the ex-Carlos Sainz Ford, owned by Nick Jarvis. He did a 1:40. And Nabila Tejpar is going to be some way off that. Let's see what she does. A 48.4 as she goes across the line. This is Steve Rockingham with Fiona Scarrett alongside in the Subaru Impreza, the ex-Christoph Holovic car, which did European as well as World Championship events in its time. Got its Network Q RAC Rally number panels on the side, and also on the stage should soon be Kevin Ferber. The Stratos of Matt Girardo hopefully is there as well. That should have gone ahead of the Subaru. So the Stratos, even though it's one of the older cars, electing to run within the timed element of the competition, which is great to see. However, let's see what the Subaru can do here. Max Girardo does go through. 1:54. Girardo, what does Steve Rockingham do? Let's see. A 1:44.0 then for the Subaru. But these times are going to get quicker and quicker the further through this you get. This is Jari-Matti with Bill Painter sitting alongside in the works delivering Toyota Celica GT4. Round the donut nicely. Back onto the power once again. One of the great rally cars from Toyota. This 16 World Championship wins, drivers' titles for the likes of Carlos Sainz in '92, Ewa Kankkunen in '93, and Didier Auriol in 1994. So this car, huge history behind it. Looked after by Toyota Europe, and Jari-Matti comes out of the tunnel then. What is this time going to be? Where is it going to put him? Let's see, as he does a 36.8 to go fastest. Very good run indeed, that 1:36.8 then, quickest so far. But apart from an incident on stage 4 last night, this ex-Works Ford, another ex-Carlos Sainz car of David Wright and Michael Wilkinson, has been very competitive too. The Ford Focus WRC. Across the gravel it goes, kicking up the dust behind him as he heads now towards the donut. Time to beat at the moment, remember, is a 1:36.8. And he's looking good in that first split, isn't he? So right now, looking as though this could be the fastest time on the stage. Ben Mellers has gone through, incidentally, with his Toyota RA40, the earlier ex-Bjorn Valdegaard car, to go 4th in the times. Out of the tunnel comes David Wright then. He's heading up towards the line. Let's see what he's going to be able to post. It's a 1:31.8 that is the fastest on this stage so far. 1:31.8 then for the Ford Focus. Good job done. Now George Lepley, Ollie Mellors, Ocean Price, Reese Gates amongst the next to go. This is Ocean Price's view on board with the Polo GTI R5 for the World Rally Championship, built to the R5 regulations. Jess Hoxley sitting alongside as Ocean Price bounces now across the gravel. Stones clattering against the underside of the car, heads up towards the next to the chicanes, safely through, back onto the power, into the sunshine, heading now past the trees down towards the donut. Attacks the donut right now. Onto that tarmac element in the main entrance to the motor circuit. Round the donut and away onto the perimeter roads once again now. Narrow section here. Oh, very close indeed to the hedge there. Got away with it. Turn right again. Back onto the power, tail wags. Another right coming up here. That takes you to the tunnel. Time to beat still at 1:31.8. And it is looking good, this, for Ocean Price. Can he be in the high 20s? The answer is going to be yes, a 1:29.7 then. Ocean Price, 1:29.7. But this is the man that leads the event thus far, Reese Gates. Quickest in all of the stages last night. The man from Chesterfield, who's going to be doing not just the rally element of the weekend, but also the Drift Karma. Couldn't decide on a livery, so has gone for a rally colour scheme on one side, the Drift Karma on the other. So you've got the dual identity Ford Fiesta R5, dominant on the event thus far, and it looks as though Reese Gates is going to make it 5 stage wins out of 5 because he does a 1:28.4 to go fastest. 1:28.4, Reese Gates yet again proves just how good he is. He has been the standout driver so far in the Goodwood SpeedWeek Super Special. Fastest once again, and extending that advantage over the opposition. And we will have the cars out for the remaining 2 stages a little bit later on in the afternoon. But great action from the SpeedWeek Super Special. And part 2 coming up at 4:45, part 3 at 6:20, all being well. And it'll be fascinating to see whether the dominance shown hitherto of Reese Gates continues, but just seemingly at the moment, no stopping him. So this is how we look then, in terms of the times at the end of the stage. Reese and James Yates, the fastest, 1:28.4 being the best time ahead of Ocean Price, and David Wright keeping out of trouble with the Ford Focus. George Lepley, fourth, ahead of Ollie Mellors with the quicker of the two Proton Iris Izzes. Then Gary Lakodu and Steve Lonquist ahead of Kevin Ferber with the Peugeot 208. Ben Mellors 9th with the Toyota RA40. Steve Rockingham 10th from the Bella and the Stratos of Max Girardeau ending the 12 that run for a time. So let's have a look at the highlights then of part 1 of today, stage 5 of the event, led away by the charging Jason Lepley with the Escort Mark II. Sideways, as you would expect, as the car danced its way through the chicane, over the gravel, and then to the donut. Kedworth with the short Quattro also charging on in the demo class. And Max Girardeau with the Lancia Stratos is another car running in that time element. Stratos, again, part of that fabulous, evocative late 70s era of rally. A more modern car, the Peugeot 208, the ex-Alessandro Vettici car in the hands of Kevin Ferber. The ex-Carlos Sainz Ford in David Wright's hands, also going very nicely indeed, right up at the pointy end in terms of the times. The ex-Works Toyota of Gary Lakodu, another very quick car, keeping out of trouble. While Ocean Price took the battle to Reese Gates, wasn't quite able to overhaul the Fiesta in terms of time, but making it very much a fight between the Ford and the Volkswagen. But right now, Reese Gates is the man in charge. Fastest yet again. 5 out of 5, dominating the stages thus far this weekend. Reese Gates quickest once more in the Goodwood SpeedWeek. Reese Gates is the man to beat, and underlining that yet again here this afternoon. At time we heard from the man of the moment, really, isn't it? Reese Gates is with Tom Clarkson.
Well, as David said, Reese Gates is the man. Many congratulations, fastest time.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed that. We had a little nudge with the bail on the outside there, but I was saying earlier on, it's just so much fun you can kind of, I don't know, I want to push on, but then I want to be neat. So there's some places where it's quite wide, so you can kind of slide it through a bit. But yeah, we're just enjoying it. Me and my brother are having a blast.
That's a bit of a warning to your rivals. I feel there's a lot more time for you to...
I feel like I can be a little bit quicker just by being smooth, but I just got a big smile on my face, so I just can't help myself around the donut and stuff, just kind of just sending it in a little bit. So yeah, just having fun. That's the main thing.
Now, Reese, this is the first time we've had a rally stage here at Goodwood Circuit. Just your thoughts overall?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's got the stages as well. They've got a bit of everything in it, you know, with the donut and then the gravel on the back there as well. So yeah, it's just nice to be in the rally car and just putting on a bit of a show and through the tunnel, and yeah, it is really good, and we're just enjoying it.
And a nice, tasty battle between Ford and Volkswagen.
Yeah, we're having a good battle. We're having a good battle. So yeah, I know Osham from racing the British Championship as well. So yeah, it's just good to have a bit of, it's competitive and also fun as well. So yeah, it's just combined them together and we're just having a blast. So yeah, it's mega.
All right, great stuff. Well, good luck for the rest of the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reese.
Cheers, thank you.
David, back up to you.
Welcome back here to rallying at Goodwood SpeedWeek. As you can see, all the cars are lined up, ready to go for the 6 of 7 stages here at Goodwood. And I just thought I'd tell you the results so far, because leader is Reese Gates in a newer Ford Fiesta R5 car, and behind him Ocean Price in a VW Polo R5 car, and then we have Oliver Mellors in an R5 car. Here we see some slightly older generation rally cars, but equally as spectacular, and it's natural to think that the newer rally cars are the fastest around this stage. They have, you know, a different kind of generation about them. You know, they are newer, the suspension is newer, the geometry is newer, and yeah, they're just more efficient and effective around a rally stage. I really want to talk to a guy here in one of the Metro 6R4 cars. We'll see if we can get a quick word. That's quite an impressive cockpit.
It's a little bit tight. There's not much room to breathe in here.
No, that's true. How's it going?
Really good fun, really enjoying it. It's a bit of a hostile environment, but no, absolutely loving it.
Now, are you normally a co-driver?
Both. So I've been booted in, so my dad's driving this weekend.
That's brilliant.
I've been relegated.
We've got to go and have a quick word with your dad. Okay, let's have a very quick over here. Give us a quick line on what it's.
Fantastic. Very, very tight and lots of things to hit.
Welcome to the Speedweek Super Special here at Goodwood. We have the cars getting ready for the second run today, the 6th stage of the event, and the field getting ready for this run through the stage. We have different stages here. This is 0.98 miles long, and it's 100% tarmac this time. Some of the stages have used gravel, but the car's good to go on a stage that will thread its way around some of the perimeter roads, some of the race circuit as well, and with the chicane that then takes them back off again onto the tarmac run. There's the donut, and then they finish on the race circuit itself. So it should be a quick stage, this, and we have two groups of cars. One being for the demo cars, one being for the timed cars. The difference being that although the clock runs on everybody, those doing the demonstration runs aren't in part of the overall competition. And the timed cars, as the name suggests, are doing exactly that. So there a look at the demo cars in the first group, many of them from Group 4 or Group B era. And looking further back, you'll see the more modern machinery that will go in the timed element of this run. So 0.98 miles long. Ready to go for this 6th stage of the competition. Reese Gates, who drives one of the 4 Fiesta R5s, has been absolutely dominant throughout this. And he has been fastest across each stage thus far. So looking down from the high shot, down onto the circuit, bits of which are going to be used. And the 6th special stage of our Speedweek Super Special, good to go. So there you've got the cars set to go. And the Toyota Yaris, which is one of the 2 new GR Yarises, one of the 2 demo cars that will go first. Look further down the order, you've got the short Quattro there, but the first car to go is going to be the Escort Mark II, driven by Jason Leckley, the ex-Harry Vatanen car. There, one of these 2 new 257 brake horsepower Toyota Yarises, the 4-wheel drive 1600 turbo. Jari-Matti Latvala has one to play with. Elfyn Evans has another of them, and they have been very entertaining in the demo runs that they have done thus far. 1600 turbocharged 4-wheel drive little pocket rockets, and so they will do a lap through the stage first, and then it'll be over to the competition cars themselves. The stage, as I say, is a short, sharp one, just under a mile long, largely on tarmac. And at the end of this, can Reese Gates continue to extend the advantage that he's been busily building up? Of course, he knows the car very well, and just to make a point about the event, Reese Gates isn't just using it as a rally car, he's going to be taking part in the Driftkarna competition with it as well. And if you look through the trees, you'll see, there it is, nestling at the back of the queue, the Ford Fiesta in its dual livery, with one side of it for rallying, the other livery for the Driftkarna. So they will make their way from the paddock down through the tunnel. Perimeter roads bring the cars round a little chicane, then down towards the outside of Woodcote Corner, onto the runoff tarmac, onto the race circuit itself, down towards the chicane, flick through that, back towards the perimeter road. The main entrance is where the donut is situated, and you blast from that back onto the circuit itself and finish on the start and finish line. The Southern Car Club, under regular Goodwood rally consultant Rick Smith and his team, have created some interesting tests for the cars, using mainly the start-finish area, first corner, last corner, pit straight, but also the perimeter roads that fall behind it, and some using some of the gravel as well. So one of the downsides, of course, to the event, no fans. One of the good sides to having no fans is that you've therefore got more space to play with, because areas that would normally have thousands of people, you can now use because they're empty. And so that has been, if you like, one of the positives, allowing different use of the facilities here, and also allowing different cars with different speeds to come and take part. So last instruction given to Jari-Matti Latvala, of course, has been a World Championship star for Ford, for Volkswagen, and more recently for Toyota, with the GR Yaris, the Gazoo Racing Yaris. And look at what else is coming up, including there the ex-Carlos Sainz Lancia Delta Integrale. You've got the ex-Richard Burns Peugeot 205 GTI, the T16, the ex-Ua Kankanen car, Metro 6R4s, both from Works and private hands. The Works Ford, the ex-Kalle Grundle car, Stig Lonquist car, the Jolly Club Lancia, Walter Rolls Audi Quattro, Anu Mikkela's Audi Quattro, and at the front of the queue will be this Ari Vatanen Ford Escort, as the cars now are brought forward, ready to go. So the Escort will be first away in terms of the competition cars. The track inspection just by the Motorsport UK steward and by the clerk of the course. When they're happy, then we can get the demo cars through. These two Yaris, effectively pre-production models, expected to retail at about £30,000. 257 brake horsepower, 3-cylinder, 1600cc turbo engines, and they have proved to be very quick indeed. Four-wheel drive means they certainly take off rapidly, and these little pocket rockets are going to be the first through our Super Special, which is part of SpeedWeek, which is this great mix of racing, rallying and speed, all competition. We've got the shootout, which is like a sprint, a lap of the circuit, the final of which is on Sunday afternoon. We have these 7 rally stages to make up the SpeedWeek Super Special, and a variety of racing going back to Edwardian cars all the way up to cars from the early 1980s in the Jerry Marshall Trophy, which is our feature race at the end of today. On top of that, static displays and plenty of demonstrations on track as well for manufacturers, and celebrating too Formula One's 70th anniversary with a great selection of cars here to showcase what Formula One has achieved in its time. And there, a look down into the paddock. All the cars, once they arrive, put into their shelters, and everywhere you look there's a mouth-watering selection of cars from different eras, from different categories as well, be it sports car racing, single-seater racing, Grand Prix racing, or indeed touring car racing. And touring cars represented by cars from the 60s and the St Mary's Trophy that races tomorrow and Sunday, and the Jerry Marshall Trophy for the 70s and 80s cars that will be out on track later. And then you've got another great raft of machinery from the recent times taking part in the shootout, including Rick Wood's Holden Commodore, the Nissan Skyline just next to it. You can see the blue nose sticking out of the shelter. Plenty of Porsches are here, including the 1998 Le Mans winning 911 GT1 of Stefan Ortelli, Alan Manish and Laurent Aiello. Look the other way, you've got the old Tommy Kendall red and white Ford Mustang Trans Am there being almost taken apart in its shelter, the front off, wheels off. Right, let's have a look at the stage then. Jari-Matti Latvala is first to go. Straight away, sideways, flings the car through the tunnel, which doesn't look that wide at the best of times. Never mind when you try and go through it at great speed. Out the other side, into the daylight, avoid the straw bales, turn sharp left and get onto the power. Now this is a normally pretty narrow section. You can see all the bales put in to protect buildings, protect marshals, protect drivers, create more chicanes. Thread your way around that, then back onto the power, heading round the outside of the race circuit, going in the opposite direction to the direction that the race cars would travel, and then you find a gap in the barriers and flick onto the circuit on the outside of Woodcote. Onto the power, on that run-off tarmac, heading to another hairpin, which is coming up right here, and that's tight, that's narrow, onto the circuit, and then up through the gears goes Jari-Matti Latvala, approaching the chicane, which which he will flick through in a moment, into the right and then the left. Every time he hits the brakes, hazard lights flash on, comes through the chicane now, except instead of going up towards the line, you almost do a complete loop around there, go back towards those perimeter roads and accelerate towards the donut, which is going to be in front of the main entrance to the motor circuit, go round that and then up towards the flying finish back onto the circuit. So let's get set for the first of the competition cars. That is Jari-Matti Latvala, who I think has made a little bit of a mess of the donut. He seems to be way out wide, but let's not dwell on that. Gets back onto the race circuit, heads up to the flying finish, will break the timing beam, and his demonstration run is completed. Makes it look easy. So let's see how these cars get on. The first one should be away on the change of the minute. You can see the clock ticking on down just in front. The co-driver will look at that. Elfyn Evans is up to finish his run in the second of the GR Yarises. Whoops, pushes out way round the donut there. Bags of understeer, fights the car through, takes another inch off the tyres, and then heads back towards tarmac and back towards the flying finish. So the Toyota star from the World Rally Championship up towards the flying finish, and Elfyn Evans completes his run. So we are set to go, and Jason Leppley will be first away. The car with the Shell Oils livery, the Mark II Escort, the sort of car with which Ari Vatanen won the 1981 World Rally Championship. 1979, the very first proper year for a World Drivers' Championship. It was an Escort in the hands of Bjorn Valdegaard that took the crown. This MCD prepared car in period, ready to go. It is Jason Leppley behind the wheel, and any second it will be ready to go. The clock ticks on down, so there should be a 10 count now. There'll be a red light that comes on, and any second, 2, 1, now, blasts away, the green light blinks on. So with that familiar bark of the engine, the Mark II Escort of Jason Leppley then leaves the centre of the paddock, effectively through the tunnel, bursts out the other side, lock up, tweak of the handbrake, bring the back of it round, and back onto the power. Right, easy so far. Past the phone box, into the chicane, and at this point there's another left-right sequence. The back wags out, just avoids the tyre stack there, accelerates along the perimeter road now, heading towards the outside of Woodcote Corner, and then towards the tarmac section of the circuit. So onto the run-off tarmac on the outside of Woodcote, through that gap, through that chicane. Another tight hairpin coming up then with the tyre stack on the inside, bales on the outside, Jason Leppley through without too much opposite lock being applied there. That was almost a circuit race line, but also bogged down a little bit on exit. Now through Woodcote, up towards the chicane. So far, so good. Runs a little bit deep, scrabbles round, gets away with that, and now loops back, ready to go onto the perimeter roads once more. So turn sharp right along this run, which will bring them towards the donuts, round that, and then towards the tarmac of the race circuit once more. Go back in time, there was barely a rally that didn't have a Mark II Escort in it. They had so many successes, it wasn't true, whether it was at world or national championship level. And Jason Leppley, the first man up towards the flying finish, sideways as he comes back onto the circuit as an Escort Mark II should be driven. And that's the first run through from those out of our demo section. Now, Audi, of course, revolutionised rallying when they pioneered four-wheel drive technology. It wasn't long before all the other manufacturers had to go with them. But the Audi Quattro then, in the final days of Group 4, then into Group B, was very much pioneering technology. Straight away, people realised its potential, but it was a heavy car to begin with. Reliability had to be worked on. As the car got more reliable and became lighter, it became faster as well. And it wasn't long before everybody needed to go that same four-wheel drive route in order to stay competitive. So over the timing line goes Adam Trainer's Quattro. Also from the later days of Group B, 1985, the Lancia Delta S4, that had a turbo and supercharged engine, came into the sport at the end of the 1985 season and won the RAC Rally, and everybody then suddenly realised that this was going to be the car to beat. No matter what Ford or Austin Rover or Audi had planned, it was just a fantastic car. Now, if you think about the relative pace of these, they can push as hard or not as they wish, effectively. These are demonstration runs. Some are going to be quicker than others, especially when you consider the value and the rarity of a number of them. But it's just great to have a look at some of these cars. This is the Jolly Club colour scheme, so it was a private Italian squad against the works cars, but in European and Italian national events the livery would have been carried, but the works Lancia is very successful. But of course by the end of 1986, because of tragedies in the sport, Group B was outlawed, and so the halcyon days that many people considered they were came to an end. Many of the cars found a home in World Rallycross, and it was one of these cars that Matti Alamäki won the European crown with. You can see that John Saunders has had a relatively sedate run, and so being caught there by the traffic, which had to wait before it comes to the donut, another of the Audi Quattros. That car of Adam Marsden. Now, Austin Rover thought Group B rallying was the way to go, so with a bit of help from Williams, came up with the Metro 6R4. This was how the cars ran in the World Championship in this colour scheme. The late Tony Pond had one, Malcolm Wilson had the other, and in 1985, when the car made its World Championship debut, third on the RAC rally in the hands of Tony Pond, it captured a nation cheering the car on. However, the Lancia made its debut on the same event and proved to be so much faster. So going into 1986, straight away, I think ARG realised it had a big fight on its hands, and the cars were just always a little bit breathless compared to what Lancia had come up with. But this very original looking car, the works colour scheme that Austin Rover Group carried at the time, a car owned by Stuart Larvae, son Simon sitting alongside. With that familiar howl, the 6R4 into the chicane. Again, once Group B rallying had stopped, these cars didn't have a home in the World Championship, but the lower horsepower cars were still eligible for national events, so for a number of seasons continued within club events. To the donut comes Stuart Larvae. Turns his way through and accelerates, does he? Oh, confused of the donut. What's he done? Does he think he needs to go around it twice? No, keep going, says the marshal. So he does, he goes for it. And up to the flying finish. But I think, oh, in the background, we've got the ex-Ewer Kankkunen 205 T16 also having a drama coming out of the chicane. I think he's wrong slotted there. So Lee Kedworth needs to find himself back on the right road. Ex-Colin McRae Subaru, this is the car that Martin Sparrow owns. And it was a winning car in the hands of Colin McRae and Derek Ringer. Again, period colour scheme. This hung on to win the 1993 New Zealand rally. So Martin Sparrow, who had a spin on one of the stages last night, just got a bit crossed up. I think it was at the donut, in fact, that he got it wrong. Hoping to keep out of trouble this evening. But again, this car is running within the demo category, so it doesn't really matter how hard he pushes. There's no time really on the line for him, whereas there are for the second group of cars that we'll get to very shortly, because we've almost got to the end of the demo runs. The Ryan Champions, Subaru Impreza 555 still to go, but again with the cars in period colour scheme, recreating many a memory of how international rallying, World Championship rallying was at the time. So Martin Sparrow presses on, comes down towards the chicane. Terry Dolphin is the man trying to guide his man around the stage. Flicks beautifully around the chicane, heads for the gap there onto the perimeter roads, about to turn sharp right, speed builds, and now down towards the donut. Again, tweak the handbrake, round comes the back, beautifully done, and he's going to go round it twice. Some do two, some do one. I thought it was only one run round. However, Martin Sparrow getting his mileage out of all of this. And so now we're into the cars within the timed element of the competition. Steve Lonquist is the first to go, the 1984 World Rally Champion. He's 72 years of age. He took pole position earlier on today for the Pre-66 St Mary's Trophy race in a Ford Galaxy. And here he is in the timed element of the Goodwood SpeedWeek Super Special stage. And Steve Lonquist utterly irrepressible. He's raced, he's rally crossed, and is as keen now as ever. This car owned by Nick Jarvis, it's an ex-Carlos Sainz, Luis Moya Ford. As you can see, Carlos used to bring the Spanish oil company sponsorship with him wherever he went. And last night, Sting had an off, lost a lot of time in the dark. It's wrong slotted and lost a big chunk of time. So that's why he goes first, because it's the reversal of the classification. So last man goes first man, Reese Gates, the event leader, will go last. But for Steve Lonquist, with Philip Hall sitting alongside him, very shortly, he's got to change the chip in his brain to get into a circuit race in a very different sort of car. But the great Swedish driver clips the grass on the inside there, avoids the tar stack, but just shortens the run a little, accelerates his way now through the sprint down towards the donut. Remember, four-wheel drive technology here, so let's see how easy it is to get the car to flick round. Not at all. Stig very sedate around that, and then accelerates his way back towards the race circuit. 90 left to end, up to the flying finish, sideways as he comes back into view, up through the gears. And what's the time going to be? It's a 1 minute 40 for Stig Blomqvist as we get set now for Steve Rockingham, good to go in the Subaru. This car that Christoph Olovic used to use in European and World Championship events. Clock ticks on down, 3, 2, 1, go. Green light blinks on. So Steve Rockingham with Fiona Scarrett sitting alongside, accelerates away. First thing you do is attack the tunnel. It's been pretty daunting, that, given the wall's oh so close to you. Out the other side, a lot of effort and commitment being put in by Steve Rockingham here as he gets the Impreza WRC nicely wound up, then through that next to the chicane. Stand on the brakes, go left, go right. Narrow section of the stage, that, but there's the grass, should you need it, on one side, avoid the hedge on the other, and now head up towards the approach to the race circuit here. So flick the car round the bale, through the gap, come out the other side onto that runoff tarmac. Nabila Tejpar has gone through with the Proton and actually gone fractionally quicker than Stig Blomqvist, 1 minute 39.3. But the Subaru here looking competitive. Remember that we're running in reverse order, so each car you see should be quicker than the previous one, because that's the way the competition works. Working up towards Reese Gates, the last man to go, who's been fastest on every stage of the 5 thus far. So, round the back of the chicane to the perimeter roads now comes Steve Rockingham. Up through the gears. That familiar engine note of the Subaru. The turbo popping and banging on overrun as well. Into the donut now. Swoops round it. Nicely done so far. Whoops. Goes the wrong way completely. The donut was great, and now he's gone onto a completely different section of the stage. So instead of going for the gap on the tarmac, he's gone onto the gravel and somewhat shamefacedly reverses back into view. This is the walk of shame in rally terms, I fear. Right, the tarmac bit, Steve. That's it. Carries on. Kevin Ferber, meantime, is going to be able to get a better time, one hopes, than the Subaru did. This ex-Alessandro Bettger Peugeot. Kevin Ferber, he's been spectacular, but not that quick relative to what you might have anticipated over the course of the event thus far. But it's great to see this car in action. So flicks towards the chicane, locks the rears, and oh dear, he's going to go the wrong side of the tyre stack. Confusion reigns here as well, but gets away with it, gets now back onto the right route, as it were. But he's got to get the donut right in a moment. It was a good way of getting out of the chicane. Trouble was that it was almost too tight, so went the wrong side of that tyre stack. Whether any penalty will come from that, we'll wait and see what the clerk of the course decides to do. Round the donut, so far so good. Yes, gets the right exit, gets the right launch off that. Nabila Tejpar currently is the fastest, but Kevin Ferber up towards the line should go top, and does so just on a 1 minute 39.1 in the Peugeot. Now this Toyota is one of the older cars within the time section, fishtailing its way back onto the tarmac. The Toyota RA40 that Ben Mellors drives with gusto. Big lock up there as he scrabbles down towards the chicane, the ex-Bjorn Valdegaard car. And he gets the exit of the chicane somewhat wrong as well, and goes the wrong side of the tyre stack all over the grass. Gets away with it, but they're giving themselves extra handicaps by doing that because it's a tighter line, it's a slower run out of the corner. Anyway, when it's going well, it's going nicely, this Toyota. Follow it with the drone as he comes between the trees, up towards the donut. Locks the rear, squeal of tyres, gets that wrong as well. Headbutts the donut. Oh dear, oh dear. I said Ben drove it with gusto, but it's all unravelled right towards the very end. Kevin Ferber, who's the quickest, should stay fastest at the end of this as well, as the car now comes back onto the race circuit. And up towards the flying finish. Through goes Ben Mellors, 1 minute 40.5 in that car. The Toyota then is done for the moment. Now this is the much more recent Toyota Celica, dates back to 1992. Gary Lakodu is the man behind the wheel of it, the sort of car that took the world title in the hands of Carlos Sainz in 1992, Ewa Kankanen the year after, Didier Auriol in 1994, and Gary Lakodu has done a really good job thus far. Lakodu quick out of the chicane, tidy here as well, 139.1 to beat, should be able to do it I think, looking at the evidence thus far, as he comes now into the approach to the donut. This is what's been the undoing of 1 or 2, not just the donut itself, but the exit. That all looks good. Turn sharp left up towards the flying finish, sideways onto the tarmac, and this is going to be very good, isn't it? Is it in the 30s? Just 1 minute 30.4 then for the Toyota. 1 minute 30.4, best time yet. Now this is the ex-Carlos Sainz Ford Focus that David Wright has, co-driven by Michael Wilkinson. It's been very spectacular across the event thus far. Also had a wrong slot last night in the dark through the chicane exit, slightly different configuration to the chicane today than yesterday on this stage, but the Ford Focus comes round the chicane. Now that's a really nice line. Kept up the power, drifted it beautifully, went the right way as well, which was a bonus. Through that very, very tight left, runs it a little bit wide up onto the grass on the outside. So David Wright here comes up towards the donut, better than anybody to the first split. Around the donut, is that good? It is good. So can he get into the high 20s here rather than into the 30s? Bursts back onto the race circuit, and it is looking good this as he comes up towards the line on 126.5, puts him top of the times, 126.5. Laying down a marker for this man, for George Lepley, with Wayne Sissons alongside in the Mitsubishi Evo 10. And to make the point again, as you go through all of these cars, you're getting all the while up towards the quicker drivers. Wide out of the hairpin there onto the grass goes George Lepley, survives that. And now towards the chicane, turns his way, right, left, and then has to get the car round, effectively a hairpin, which he does beautifully, onto the perimeter road here, turn sharp right. Of course, the more people cut that corner, the more there's going to be a little trench on the inside of it. So it's just starting to cut up a little, won't be massively troublesome for the drivers. But now towards the donut he comes. Turns from that, back towards the circuit, heading to the 90 left that brings him back onto the course, up towards the line. Is this going to be the best time thus far? It is a 126.3. It is the best time so far. So George Lepley, 126.3, 2/10 up on David Wright. Now this is Ollie Mellors in the Proton Iris R5. He also lost a little bit of time yesterday on the first special stage when he ran a bit wide through one of the chicanes on the gravel and had to just back out and start again. So a few seconds were lost, but Ollie Mellors going nicely here. This is another car that's going to take part in the Drift Kana element of Speed Week. Multi-discipline event, races, rallies, the sprint and the Drift Kana as well. Ollie Mellors back onto the power, heading up towards the donut. He's got to get himself to the flying finish before 1 minute and 26.3 seconds have elapsed, and it's not looking great because he's slightly slower in that second split, but let's see. Drifts out a little bit wide, now he's got the momentum back towards the tarmac, flicks the car onto the pit straight sideways as he comes into view, almost up against the pit wall, 25, 27.2, so he's third fastest, on board now with Ocean Price in the Polo R5. He's been the nearest opposition to Reese Gates thus far. So Ocean Price with the Volkswagen, a car built by the factory but really aimed at the privateer's hands for R5 regulations within the recent WRC. Into the chicane, Jessica Hockley on the map, avoids the tyre stack. Now you get an idea of just how narrow it is. Out of that tight right, get the power down, up through the gears. Careful of the trees on the right. Road opens up a little bit. Suddenly stand on the brakes, get the handbrake used. Round the donut. Power out of that. 26.3 to beat. He's going to smash that, isn't he? So Ocean Price here should go to the top of the times with a 23.2, fastest time so far. But there's Reese Gates here, who has won every stage thus far, and this is going to be the man to beat them. Flicks the car onto the tarmac now, coming towards the race circuit. This is the wrong way around Woodcote. Onto the circuit, all good so far. Accelerates his way now up to the chicane. That's been the undoing of 1 or 2, but the man from Chesterfield then, former English rally champion back in 2015, only began rallying in 2013, so with his brother sitting alongside him, really nicely done out of the chicane there, bursts his way onto the perimeter road, accelerates up now towards the approach to the donut under the trees. Back steps out ever so slightly, corrects that, flicks the car now into the approach to the donut. Doesn't get too sideways, beautifully controlled that, just clips the dirt on the outside as he's back onto the race circuit. Now, the time to beat is a 23.2. He's going to do it again, surely. Yes, he is. 1 minute 20.9. I think he slowed a bit early there, but Reese Yates, almost confused by where the flying finish was still the quickest by 2.3 seconds. So Reese Yates goes fastest again. He's won every stage thus far, and there's still one more to go before the end of the evening. The last stage of the SpeedWeek Super Special. So let's just remind ourselves what this is all about, what the cars are all about. Down there, ready to tell us more, is Molly Pettit.
We certainly aren't done yet. One of my favourite things is rally cars in darkness, and darkness certainly has fallen here at the Goodwood race circuit. Everyone's looking ready to go, and the lights will be beaming on the just over 1 mile last rally stage, the 7th and final stage of rallying here at Goodwood SpeedWeek. Now I'd like to find out from someone here what it is like to go rallying in the dark. I'm not sure if we can fit in here, but we could try. It's quite tight between the metros here. I'll just make them aware that I'm here. Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Now, darkness has fallen here at Goodwood. What is it like to rally in the dark?
Do you know, I actually prefer it in the dark because the headlamps on these are so bright that you're kind of, at one with the headlamps. It's really quite good fun.
Could you give us a bit of history about your car?
Yeah, it was raced or rallied considerably on tarmac stages mainly about 20 years ago. And it continues to rally, so it's good fun.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Oh, the metros are starting up here. Everyone else is looking revved and ready. Let's have a little walk down and show you all of these beautiful rally cars from all sorts of decades within the world of rallying. They're all heading off now to the start of the stage, which is actually out on the start straight of the Goodwood race circuit.
Right, so the cars make their way ready for this final stage of the SpeedWeek Super Special. And cars now, of course, have to contend with the darkness. Whoever came up with the format for this certainly knew exactly how to run a rally, didn't they, Rick Smith? Because the competitors have had tarmac, they've had gravel, they've had a bit of rain last night, a few spots of rain in the air, and now they're going to finish again in the darkness. So this time around, the stage is going to start on that pit straight, down towards the first corner of Madgwick, quick chicane, quick hairpin left, onto the gravel, along the gravel, chicane, back onto the perimeter road, turn through a left, go right, up to the donut, then towards the buildings and to the tunnel, and then onto the finish, back into the paddock, roughly where the cars are moving now, just at that section of Goodwood. So our last chance to have a look at the rally cars. So into position they will slot very shortly, and then we shall be good to go, ready for the final stage of the Goodwood SpeedWeek Super Special. Ben Mellor's Toyota makes its way up towards the stage start. Quattro 6R4s nestling in the queue. The Ford RS200 is there, and a car not seen too much of over the course of the event, but it is another of the great Group B cars of the period. Mark Lovell used one to win the British Championship. World success wasn't hugely forthcoming, it must be said, but not for the want of trying on the part of the likes of Stig Lonquist or Kalle Grundle. It was one of those cars, of course, that was involved in the big accident in Portugal that year. Joaquin Santos with a semi-works car, private car, had an off, and of course involved spectators. It was partly that that got the governing body to look at banning, ultimately did ban Group B. However, it is still an era that excites many, and it is a stage of 1.12 miles distance that will round out the Super Special then. So let's have a quick look at the course. Accelerate from the start on the race circuit itself down through Madgwick. But rather than go all the way around it, you have a quick chicane onto the tarmac on the outside of the road, and then that in turn takes you onto the gravel round the perimeter of the circuit. Little chicane put in round the back of the buildings. You've got the donut to contend with, slalom your way through, and then under the tunnel. Gravel from junction 3 to junction 5 and junction 6 to junction 7, should you wish to know. So the two Toyota GR Yarises are good to go. Elfyn Evans and Jari-Matti Latvala will go first. There you've got the cars all set. So off goes Elfyn Evans first of all, and now you start to see exactly how little visibility, how little in terms of reference points the drivers are going to have. So now perhaps more than ever you are dependent on the co-driver, and imagine doing this for mile after mile after mile, and in the rain or the fog perhaps on Wales Rally GB. Suddenly illustrates just how tough rallying can be. So Elfyn Evans in one of these two Yaris demo cars, and then you're going to have Jari-Matti Latvala behind. 30-second intervals the cars will be released at when we get into the competition itself, coming up in a few minutes' time. So Elfyn Evans sprints his way up now to the donut off the gravel, finds the tarmac once again, loops his way around that, and then will accelerate off for the final 4-5 corners of the stage. A reminder that the event has rather been dominated by Reese Gates. He's been the man to beat thus far, and what can anybody do to stop him? Well, it's really only going to take a capital problem or a really serious mistake to derail the challenge of Reese Gates out of all of this, because he's just looked so good all through the competition. Right, that's the first man to go. The familiar sight now of the first car on the line. Flash of the lights from Jason Lepley. He's going to need all of that illumination, I think, once he gets going. Assuming the main beam wants to stay on. So the marshals that have had a long day, not only in terms of the rally marshals working late, but also having to build the course as well. So the Escort is set ready. And any moment now, the Escort will be released once the clock gets to the allotted minute. If we're going at 18:38, we're about 20 seconds away from that. And then at 30-second intervals, again, the usual format. The demo cars go first, and then we'll get the timed cars for their final blast straight after. So, are we set to go? Not yet, would appear to be the answer to that. So Jason Lepley waits. They are given a start time by the officials. And they're not quite at that yet, so he's not allowed to go early, otherwise that would incur a penalty. The Escort that has been very spectacular all the way through this competition. It's been great to have the great variety, the great enthusiasm of the competitors. Right, are we just about set to go? Sounds a bit more urgent, doesn't it, from the Escort now? Everybody slightly more focused. Driver and co-driver look across to the clock. Right, engine revs, wait for the light to blink green, which it should do any second now, and away goes Jason Lepley then, so the Escort blasts off the line. Jason with Susanna Lepley sitting alongside, the Mark II Escort then down towards Madgwick, build up the speed, and then just as you've mastered all of that, you've got to stand on the brakes, try and work out where that chicane is, thread yourself between the tyre stack and the cones, burst of acceleration, just as you grab a gear, you've got to go down a gear again, because you stand on the anchors, flick not only through a hairpin, but onto a change of surface, onto the gravel, and there's a climb, so real test that, especially in the dark. So across that gravel section then comes the Escort. And you can understand, certainly for the cars in the demo class, a bit of caution being put into this section now. So Jason Lepley will drop down for final time towards tarmac, make the run up towards the donut, around which he will have to slalom his way, and then back onto the power to sprint out the other side. First of all, there's that chicane to cope with, though, coming back towards the tarmac, and now the car sprints down through the approach to junction 6, then the donut. Away in the meantime goes the Quattro of Andy Traynor. Andy Traynor's Quattro, that's Adam Marsden's car, and then of course the short Quattro of David and Paula Kedworth, the Sport Quattro S1 E2, which has been another great charismatic addition to the entry list this weekend. To the tunnel, up to the flying finish then goes Jason Lepley. Been looking good, this. Very good indeed. Makes the run now into the lot of tire squeal, the right-hander. Back steps out just a touch and up towards the line he goes. Right, the Quattro then. Andy Traynor with the A1, Adam Marsden with a similar car, and both of them here accelerating around the tarmac section. See the manufacturer area on the outside of the course there. Up now towards the donuts goes Adam Marsden. Gently around that. Again, if you're not going for a time, there's no need to really overstress things, especially given the value of some of these cars. Others are blasting away from the line. And it won't be long before we get ourselves to the cars within that time section. Trying to do some headlight spotting now. Adam Marsden's Audi, the Quattro A1, second generation Quattro to arrive for the 1983 season. But this is the car from 1985 into 1986, the Sport Quattro that Walter Röhrl drove, Pikes Peak winning car. But as a Group B rally car, it just did not seem to have the power and the pace of the Peugeot 205s, for example, nor the Lancias. So it didn't really generate what Audi had hoped for. And it was a real handful, as Walter Röhrl and others will testify. It should have worked. It was aggressive, it had aero, it had grunt, but not enough. Up to the flying finish then goes David Kedworth. His weekend's activity in the car comes to an end. livery Metro 6R4 that Kedworth drove in the Scottish Championship on the RAC Rally. It's got Martin Overington at the wheel, so Martin quickly getting from Jerry Marshall Trophy Dolomite Sprint to Rally Stage 6R4. Another of the cars within the demo group, James Avis's ex-Dick Lonquist and Kelly Grundle Ford RS200, which makes a bit of a mons of the donut. Now Martin Overington's 6R4 arrives on the scene, so you're going to get the two of them together on the stage now, and the RS200 may have to jump out of the way, because I think the 6R4 has been considerably quicker here in terms of its pace, because it's certainly caught with ease. There's the Ford, there's the 6R4 behind, and it's going to be a bit follow my leader this, so I know it's a demo, but it's a shame that the last part of the day for Martin Overington is going to be somewhat compromised by having the Ford ahead, because it's going to be a rather slower run now through the tunnel. He can't really let rip. What he can do, though, is unleash the throttle finally, and the noise reverberates through the tunnel, back the other side, ready for the flying finish. More cars from the demo section still to go, including the Peugeot 205 T16, this car in the hands of Lee Kedworth, the ex-Ua Kankkunen car. Timo Salonen took World Championship success with that. That's not the GTI, that's the T16 E2. So the second generation of the Group B car. There is the 205 GTI, which Tom and David Williams will crew. That's still to go. Blast between the buildings, and the 205 T16 heads for the tunnel. I think I said it last night, but it is in many ways a good representation, this, of what many of the spectator stages on the old RAC Rally and now Rally GB would have been, a circuit or a stately home with a small stage mapped out around it. And last night, with the rain and the gravel and the fading light, we call very period indeed. Ryan Champion with the ex-Piero Liatti Subaru Impreza, proper period car this, with the ProDrive number plate on it, accelerating his way across the loose. And then after this, we will get to the timed element of the event. There they are, ready to go. So as Ryan Champion blasts to the end of the stage, it's going to be Max Girardo with the Lancia Stratos, the first man away. It's another car that is not only a great looker, but makes a great sound as well. Away he blasts. Max Girardo with Marcus Willis sitting alongside him. So now we can start to piece together this run with the aid of the split times that are offered up. The Stratos then barks its way through the chicane, heading now towards the gravel. And remember, this car dating back to, what, 1974 is worth a pretty penny. Across the gravel, Max Girardo, who we saw out with the Dallara in the shootout practice run earlier on, he now comes down through that gravel section, heading for the next of the chicanes, but at this point speed is building quite nicely. In a moment the car will thread its way through that next sequence and then get back onto the power once again. The clock ticks on down, so we are now into the timed element, the competitive element of the event, which has been rather dominated thus far by Reese Gates. Can anybody do anything about it? Let's see. With all due deference to the Lancia team, it's not going to be this car that sets the best time, but it has not disgraced itself either, and it's pretty adept at getting around the donut there. So away now will blast Max Girardo, makes the run through the last 4 or 5 corners of the stage, of the event indeed, this being the last of the stages. So he comes now up to the approach of the tunnel, and all of this, of course, having to be done on narrow roads with limited grip on a cold night, and of course in the pitch black. Over the car's headlights really for the bulk of the stage, giving you any clue whatsoever. So the finish line beckons, let's see what he can do. Max Girardeau goes through the flying finish at 1 minute 48.3 seconds then. So Max Girardeau is done. Next to go should be Stig Blomqvist. So Stig has been busy racing and rallying all weekend, and he's back behind the wheel then of the Escort, the 72-year-old. Beautifully down around the donut. He's on pole position for tomorrow's St Mary's Trophy race. Can't keep a good man down, can you? And so the ex-Carlos Sainz Escort then dancing its way from the gravel back onto tarmac, turn right again, round the back of the buildings, unleash the power now, and then a short burst of acceleration for the next right that takes you down through the tunnel, heading up now towards the flying finish. And through goes Stig Blomqvist, 1:41.5 then, so that is the better of the 2 times that we've had thus far, putting him into the stage lead here, but I suspect it ain't going to stay that way. Nabila Tejpar's Proton Iris is next to go. Nabila, regular competitor in national events, in BTRDA events, in the Wales Rally GP, both the main event and the national rally, the Clubman's Rally. Reese Stoneman sits alongside, trying to guide the route as the car now works its way around the donut and sprints out the other side. So Nabila Tejpar heads towards the tunnel, the next one to go. Come to in a second, as up to the flying finish will be the Proton any moment out of the tunnel. Right behind the cameraman, brake hard, squeal of tyres, but gets the car slowed down, and Nabila Tejpar does a 1:49.5 across the line there. Now, this should be the Subaru of Steve Rockingham, the ex-Christoph Holovich car, that is already from the gravel heading up towards the donut. Arrives on the scene now, will loop its way around the great big tyre stack and then power out the other side. Popping and banging of the turbo, that familiar Subaru sound, a bit down in the sector, but what can Steve Rockingham do? It's been an energetically driven car. This made a bit of a mess of the donut, if you recall, on the previous stage, where at the end of it, it then wrong slotted. All good here. Only the run now through the tunnel and up to the flying finish to go. The time to beat is a 1:41.5. I'm not convinced it's going to happen. So Steve Rockingham with a Subaru Group A Impreza comes out of the tunnel. No, won't go quickest, but he should go second to Stig Blomqvist here. So Steve Rockingham does a 1:46.2. The next one away should be Ollie Mellors, I think I'm right in saying, but the next... No, Kevin Ferber's Peugeot, apologies through the darkness. It's hard to see one headlights from another. Kevin Ferber's Peugeot it is that's on the stage now. Again, Sparks coming off the brakes, he attacks the donut, throws the car in, keeps the power up, keeps up the momentum, sprints out the other side, and now makes the run round the back of the buildings then. So he's looking good actually in the sectors. This could briefly put Kevin Ferber up to the top. Andy Medicott sitting alongside him. So what is this going to be? Let's see. It's got to be a 41.5 or better to be near the top, and not only are you fighting for stage times, you're fighting for overall positions within the competition as well. Going to be tight this, it might just happen though for Kevin Ferber, a 41.5 to beat. Can he do it? Let's see. Squeal of tyres through the flying finish, just goes quickest, 1:40.6 then for the Peugeot driver. And one of the older cars in the time section is this Toyota, the RA40 style Celica of Ben Mellors. The ex-Bjorn Valdegaard car accelerates through that gravel section, back to tarmac, back now to the donut. Nicely down around there without too much time lost. And the time to beat, although it's a big ask for one of the older cars, 1:40.6 seconds. That's the top time at the moment, but as ever, Ben Mellors throwing everything at this. Can he get close to a 1:40? He's going to miss out, but it's not going to be a million miles away, that's for sure. So here he comes then now, turn right, accelerate towards the tunnel. It's going to be in the 40s, but where in the 40s? Going to go third, I would predict. Let's see over the timing line. 1:44.1 for Ben Mellors. He is indeed third fastest. Next to go, Gary Lakodu's Toyota Celica, the type of car with which Carlos Sainz, Johan Gunn and Didier Auriol all won World Championships. And that car here makes the run up towards the donut. Another 5 to go after Gary Lakodu and the Celica. But he's given away quite a chunk of time at that first sector, which is surprising because this has been one of the quicker cars. And of course, running in reverse order means each car, in theory, should be quicker than the one before it. So Nabila Tejpar is the slowest at the moment. He missed out against the Lancia Stratos time. Here then is the Toyota Celica through the tunnel. Is it going to be in the 40s or can it be a high 30? No, it's going to drop into the 140s. So Gary Lakodu comes through 1:43.8. Not a bad effort. That goes quicker than Ben Mellors, so he goes third fastest. Next it should be David Wright with the Ford Focus, another of the many cars here that have Carlos Sainz history. So David Wright now quicker than anybody to the first split. This is looking very good indeed. So it should be the first of the times for this stage. Into the 30s would be a prediction. He's heading now around the back of the buildings to turn sharp right to drop into the tunnel. So where is he going to get to? A 1:35 maybe? Is that possible? Let's see. Looking pretty good this. It's certainly going to be in the 30s. Mid or high, let's see. 35 I reckon. Breaks the beam. 1:33.6 even better. So very good effort that by David Wright. 1:33.6. But Reese Gates, when he goes last, might be able to get us down into the mid-20s if he's really committed. Now this, fishtailing Mitsubishi, is that of George Lepley, who makes his way here, up through the approach to the donut, around which he will loop. Here he comes, throws the car in, catches it on the throttle, drags it out the other side, and then accelerates off to the next double right. So quicker than anybody up to that point by over a second. So a 1:32 this should be for George Lepley, barring any mistakes, barring any time lost in the remainder of the run. So turns through that right-hander. Now he's on the power into the tunnel. 33.6 to beat. So George Lepley should be on for a 1:32. Might be even better. Squeal of tyres breaks the beam. A 32 it is. 1:32.1 then. 3 to go. Ollie Mellors, Reese Yates, Ocean Price will be the drivers. And this is Ollie Mellors. So the quicker of the two Proton Iris R5s. This Ollie Mellors has been there or thereabouts, to coin a phrase, over the course of the event thus far. What can he do on the last stage? I fear he's going to drop into his third place, which has been roughly where he's been across each of the stages, apart from the tiny mistake that he made on SS2 last night, again in the dark. Round the donut, looks good. And now this is the acceleration up towards the tunnel. So the Proton will blast its way in a moment through the tunnel up to the flying finish. Road drops down, sound bounces off the walls, out the other side, set the car up, brake, flick the car through the left, up to the flying finish. This should be quickest. It's a 1:29.6, so Ollie Mellors goes fastest, but Ocean Price and Reese Yates have yet to go. And this, if you can see the onboard through the darkness, is the Ocean Price Volkswagen Polo. The chicane, see how tight those are, the straw bales. Might only be straw, but they're pretty unforgiving, all packed together like that. Right, through the next of the chicanes, slow the pace down, approach the main entrance to the motor circuit, which is where the donut is placed. Around that, the car pendulums now. Out the other side, this is the narrow section. You see how close to the edge of the road the trees are and the hedges, but Ocean Price dealing with that perfectly. He's got a 1:29.6 to beat, and then you've got Reese Yates setting off behind him. He's into the stage now, is Reese Yates, the man that is set to win the Speedweek Super Special. Through the tunnel comes Ocean Price, a 29.6 to beat. Is he going to be able to do it? He should be able to, but he's going to be close to 28 to 29.3, only by 0.3 of a second. Does he go fastest? But what can Reese Gates do then? The Chesterfield driver that has absolutely annihilated the opposition on the event thus far is out there, and what can he do then? So Ocean Price gets to the end, time cards will be handed to the officials, he'll then sit and wait, see what the time is going to be for Reese Gates. So where are the headlights at the moment? They're coming here down towards the approach of the donut. There he is. Lots of smoke pouring off the front tyres. Can this be in the 28s or better then for Reese Gates, because he's 8/10 up at the first split. Absolute best of anybody round the back of the buildings. Blasting his way now on towards the approach to the tunnel. Another sharp corner, that next 90 right, and then under the tunnel up to the flying finish. He gets to this point at 1 minute and 20. It's a 29.3 to beat, unless he gets the last corner all wrong. The stage win and the Speedweek Super Special win will go to Reese Gates. 1:28.2, fastest time on the stage. He's won every stage. He has been utterly dominant across the course of the competition over tonight and yesterday, and Reese Gates it is then that comes out on top in the Speedweek Super Special, and deservedly so.